forced to dig deeper into your pocket to afford healthcare. This after the government seems set to impose additional taxation measures on Kenyans as it seeks to raise monies that will be channeled towards the achievement of universal health coverage. The Social Health Insurance Bill 2023, which establishes the Social Health Insurance Fund that will take over the National Hospital Insurance Fund, will be used for preventive and promotive and primary care services at community, dispensary and health center levels, and build a chronic illness and emergency fund that provides for chronic illnesses, has a raft of proposals that will rattle Kenyans.
We are changing the funding system so that we can allow the vulnerable to access NHIF free of charge, and those who are in the lower category to pay less, and those who earn more like myself to pay more.
The government argues that the blanket contribution of 1,700 by every salaried Kenyan is unfair and favors higher income earners. Under the Social Health Insurance Bill 2023, those liable to contribute to every household, a non-Kenyan resident residing in Kenya for a period exceeding 1 year, the national government, the county government, and any other employer.
Na tunabadilisha mambo mengine mengi so that we can make healthcare in Kenya not the privilege of the few who can afford, but the right of every Kenyan who requires affordable and who requires medical care.
For a household whose income is not derived from employment, there will be an annual contribution matching 2.75% of the household's income that will be determined by a socio-economic assessment that will be carried out by community health workers across the country. Every Kenyan will be required to register as a member of the Social Health Insurance Fund. Through the bill, 100,000 community health promoters will be hired and will be tasked with being the first point of contact for patients.
We are going to equip our community health promoters with the necessary basic equipment ili waweze kutusaidia kwa mambo ya kutambua magonjwa mapema, ndio tuweze kuyashughulikia mapema, ndio tuache kutumia pesa nyingi kwa matibabu kwa sababu tumechelewa na ugonjwa.
The bills are said to be tabled in Parliament for consideration. And Embakasi East Member of Parliament Babu Wino says the new university funding model will kill education in the country as only a few Kenyans can afford it. According to the lawmaker, many deserving students will miss out on scholarships.
Students who did their KCSE exams and are being admitted at different universities are around 800,000 students, of which the government's intention is only to sponsor 45,000 students, which means that over 750,000 students will not be sponsored. The lowest course, that is a social science, is costing around 300,000 Kenya shillings per year, which means that a mama mboga in the village, boda rider in the slums, a mjengo person in any part of this country must part with 300,000 Kenya shillings per year. In 4 years, they must part with 1.2 million Kenya shillings.
Babu says President William Ruto has failed thousands of students who use the help loan to pay their fees. This is News. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on Spice FM.
You tune into Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Ramanya.
Amen. Amen.
So 1 hour is over?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It gets over.
Can you imagine
in 20 minutes.
What the big boys have also done?
I'm very proud of myself.
When you understand about partnership in politics, it's like the way marriage is these days. When you're looking for a wife, you're like, oh, you know, maybe you can help me pay for fees as I pay for the rent.
Why should you have a lioness living in your bedroom?
I have to tell you a story. I went for a prayer meeting, which was called for the spouses of candidates for senators and governors. And when I got to the gate, the lady who was the secretary, she refused to. She's telling me, no. Leo tunataka wa mama. Leo ni wa mama. I'm telling her, no. She said, no, sio siku yenu. And I thought, there's a problem here, you know, because if it was a man, but this was a lady.
It will be called First Ladies until you change the name.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Revenge is for children. It's for kids. When you grow up, you realize the best revenge you can take on somebody is to ignore them.
Now, I'm just new in politics. It is not everybody's cup of tea. That's why some people come in one term and that's it for them.
Political parties in this country do not have ideologies, whether luring or otherwise.
And that is the effect of corruption.
Any time an offense occurs anywhere in the country, it is the job of the Inspector General to look into it. Whether it's corruption, whether it's murder, whether it's petty, that is his job.
If we have chosen to be a corrupt nation, then we produce corrupt leaders. Everything then becomes chaotic that you cannot be able to change a nation.
The Situation Room,
end of the week.
Kenya's
It's the first day of the month, and let's look at what a busy Kenya is going to look like today, with a lot of movement in and out of the city. Getting into the weekend, there'll be a lot of outbound movement from Nairobi. We're also looking at a little bit of movement on Jogoo Road this morning, getting out towards the city centre. All right, what's happening? As you get towards the Pangani shopping centre coming in from Juja Road, there's some movement there. But as you come off the Thika Superhighway, not much happening there, at least not for now. The drizzles have started in earnest. So we're going to keep a watch out for that and see how the roads are affected. But folks are moving a little bit slower because of the rain. It's looking like it will be a good Friday. Let's talk on Spice FM, KE on X, and keep things moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have CT Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start
Friday. Not just Friday. It's September. Hey, like that.
Come on, jokes.
How many September songs do we have?
There are quite a number. No, there's I'll Be Gone Till November.
Do you remember the what day of September?
Hey,
The
do you
21st.
remember?
The 21st day. Is it the 21st day of September?
Something Erst. It's something Erst. Can only be the first.
It's not the first, it's the 21st or something.
No, I'm saying it can only be something with a 1.
Or with the ones. Then it can only be the 21st. There's no 31st.
No.
And there's no 11th.
Even as much as you would like there to
or
be.
10 ones.
No, there is not.
Huh?
Yeah.
Hakuna sindio? Happy September, baby.
To you.
You good?
I'm good.
Karibu sana.
Sandy, you're good?
Karibu hapa September. No, sisi tumekuwa hapa. Tumekuwa tukiwangojea mkuje.
Tunaweza endelea tumefika.
Tumetayarisha kila kitu. We'll show you the way.
Yeah, show us what you found.
Don't worry.
Okay. You got us?
With me here. September will be good.
It's over. We are good.
We have made all the preparations.
Huh?
Yeah. To welcome you.
Thank you very much.
Into September.
You're looking very formal for a Friday.
Oh, am I?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I've got some formal engagement today, this Friday.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got some training and some engagement with do you know a company called Kentegra?
Can what?
Kentegra.
No.
Kentegra, let me tell you something. So you've had this conversation, the government is focusing on value chains, blah, blah, blah. One of those value chains is pyrethrum. Other value chains include cotton, hides and skins. That's leather and blah, 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 and this and the other. Now, parts of this country were very good pyrethrum growers. In fact, Kenya was the leading pyrethrum grower and exporter in the world just some 3 decades ago.
Alafu?
And then things just started going south. And we even stopped growing pyrethrum. We had a Kenya Pyrethrum Board which was thriving. So several things happened. So pyrethrum, what is pyrethrin used for? It is for making those things that go into insecticides, doom, mortin, doom, and all those things. So they used pyrethrum. And then now the industry started moving into synthetic pyrethrin. So the crop pyrethrum then started losing market. But now with guys being woke and seeing, all right, so all these synthetic things we are doing, maybe they're not so good. Maybe we should go for the nature's own insecticide, which is pyrethrum. So the industry is now moving closer and closer back to pyrethrum.
Oh, groovy.
Now there are companies that are now working with farmers in the country. And one of them is this one, Kentegra, going into Nakuru County. In fact, they've signed an MOU with Nakuru County, helping farmers get back into pyrethrum farming, guaranteeing them offtake. So they also have a factory. They're going to set up a factory in Naivasha very soon. They have received funding from the US government, is it Swedish or Danish government, one of those, and others. Yeah. So now today, I'll be doing some communication training with the top management of Kentegra.
How about that?
So this is why
You're looking like this on a Friday?
I'm looking like Thursday.
Okay.
Yes. Umeona hiyo maneno?
Nimeona vizuri sana.
Yeah. But it's a very exciting things when you see all these things happening and you're like, people who were looking up to pyrethrum for very many years and then it just
fizzled out.
That industry just died.
Yeah.
And yet people used that to pay school fees.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see that come back. That's for sure.
Yeah, want to see it come back. Everybody, hello. How are you doing? Welcome to September. It's the first of that day. It's Friday, 14 minutes after 6. Let me tell you what we'll be discussing today. Implementing what? Effective climate adaptation measures in Kenya. So, the Africa Climate Summit comes into the country next week.
Yep.
Next week will be busy.
Nairobi will just be like
buzz of activity. Now, the people who are benefiting from all this, the hospitality sector. So you've got hotels and then you've got Airbnbs.
It's over. The whole of Africa is in Nairobi.
Yes.
Plus
really
Africa's friends.
Kabisa. Now, Deputy Executive Director at Alliance for Science, Michael Onyango, joins us at 7 a.m. to talk about how we can implement effective climate adaptation measures in our country as we talk about climate change. 8 a.m., we have a conversation about safety, the status of emergency medical services in Kenya. So just think about emergency medical services, and we'll have one of those stories we'll be talking about a fire in a home. So what do you do? Simple things like you've left your kids at home and someone is choking.
Yeah.
Do the people in the household know what to do?
Absolutely.
Do you know what to do?
Or somebody has a deep cut.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you know what to do? If somebody faints, what do you do? Mwekele maji moto kwa mwekele. If someone is nose bleeding, if just a simple thing as nose bleeding, what do you do in the event of nose bleeding actually? So you put your cold water,
pinch the top of your nose.
So you pinch your nose.
Hold your head up.
Is it hold your head up or is it kneel forward?
Yeah.
Which is which?
Exactly.
Now, Dr. Christine Memusi is the Medical Director at the Emergency Plus Medical Services, EM Plus. This is owned by the Kenya Red Cross, those ambulances. So, Dr. Memusi is going to be joining us at 8 a.m. Let's talk about what to do in case of medical emergencies. And then at 9 a.m., we'll have our Health Friday conversation. Let's talk about reproductive and digestive health for men and women. The CEO and founder of Harriet's Botanicals is called Harriet Chebet Ngok. She'll be joining us at 9 a.m. to talk about all these things. Ati, reproductive and digestive health.
Yes.
Digestive is tumbo. Reproductive is below tumbo. Okay.
Under tumbo.
Under tumbo. This is completely under the tumbo.
Right.
We're going to have an under the tumbo conversation. So that's our Health Friday conversation. Keep it here for these and more. Are you online? If you're online, mambo ni tatu. Uhame yo online. Ama utusalimie sisi. Ama tusafirishe wewe. 17 minutes after 6.
Okay, cloudy conditions in Nairobi. A bit of a drizzle at 15, highs of 24 and lows of 14. It's cloudy at 14 in Nakuru, highs of 26 and lows of 13. And we'll see lows of 14 in a mostly cloudy Nyeri at 14, going to highs of 24. It's 12 and cloudy in Eldoret, highs of 24 and lows of 12. And at 23, Mombasa is cloudy, highs of 29. Down to lows of 23. 24 and cloudy in Malindi, highs of 29, and we'll see highs of 29 in a mostly clear Kisumu at 18. It's partly cloudy at 16 in Kakamega, highs of 29, and looking into Kampala, it's mostly clear at 18, highs of 29. 29 seems to be the lucky number this morning because it's also going to go to highs of 29 in a mostly cloudy Dar es Salaam at 23. Johannesburg is partly cloudy at 12, highs of 24, and at 25, Lagos is cloudy, going to highs of 30 through Friday. 32 will be the high in a mostly clear Kinshasa at 22. Friday afternoon already in Beijing, and it's sunny at 26, highs of 30 and lows of 20. And Paris is cloudy at 18, highs of 23 and lows of 16. It's 16 degrees and cloudy in London, highs of 22 and lows of 15. Thursday night in New York is clear at 19. Coming into Friday, highs of 25 and lows of 15.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Don Sabwa says, it is a Friday, Eric and Ndu. Yeah, thanks to God. Now, in Malawi, to go to heaven, we say, Kupita Kumwamba.
Kupita Kumwamba. That is going to heaven.
Sasa wewe umepita kumwamba. So yes, so he says have a nice weekend. Thank you, Don. It's really refreshing to get these Malawian phrases, and I speak a little bit more cheetah than I did on Monday, isn't it? Robert Bogo says good morning. Sir George Gashoiri says good morning. Nafuraha ni furahide. Thank God it's Friday. The weekend has just begun and it will soon be over. Small now. Let's just start. You're saying it's over already.
Imagine.
Let's get into it. The 2000 says good morning everybody. CT is still charging his batteries. Yes, he will be back. Worry yourselves not. Joe Mungai says good morning from Bonnie Lake, Washington. There are 3 things tonight. Don't drink and drive. If you do, you'll go to jail or heaven. Happy Friday and 1st September indeed. Evans Nyangano says good morning, tuned in from Karen Hospital on my recovery trajectory. How are you feeling, brother? Hope you're feeling better now and that you'll be discharged soon and ready to go home. All the best. Desmond says good morning, Spice FM fraternity and listeners, love you all. Ndu, how is our junior boy CT? The young man is doing all right. He's getting it together and he'll be back with us by the time the sun comes up on Monday. How are you, spicing great people? Thanks, Agri. Good morning to you. Lazima wajue niko online. That's King BK. He says good morning and happy Friday.
Karibu.
Karibu sana. John Kiangu. Good morning, fam. Have a fulfilling and successful month. Asante to you too. All right. Ndu and Eric, mambo ni matatu. By Monday, murudishe city ama mhame station ama mtuweke Ednah. Ednah. Start preparing yourself. Anyway, good morning to you and enjoy Friday and the rest of the weekend. Asante sana. Charles Ndongo says good morning from Kuwait. Loving the morning show. Where is CT though? Okay. Let's say this 3 times.
1.
CT is charging his batteries. He'll be back with us on Monday.
2.
CT is charging his batteries. He'll be back with us on Monday.
3.
CT is charging his batteries. He'll be back with us on
Monday. Rutherford Maganga says mambo ni tatu. Eric, Ndu na CT arudi.
Okay. CT anarudi, msijali.
Yeah.
He'll be back. Worry not. All right. Happy new month from Newark and Delaware. Jamal says Zea Zembu Zeo. What are those? Kobo from Fangano Island says be blessed. Loud and clear here in Rift Valley. Going to heaven means watu wa Okoh sawa. No problem. So apparently when you say Zea Zembu Zeo, you answer Zey Zembu Zey. Can you tell us what it means so we can be sure we're not insulting anybody's child? Lero Sasai says, good morning, team. That's a beautiful name. It's a great day and cool morning from Kissy. But why did you stop dropping the daily podcast? We'll have to talk to a young man called, his name is Brian, and find out what's going on.
The podcaster.
Ednah, why have you done what you've done?
The podcasting has podcasted.
It's there. Ednah has taken me back to... Okay. Nanyuki Laikipia is where John Gishuki is. Anthony Onyango says, good morning, Mabingwa. What is that? Good morning, Salamu kutoka Mwimuto from Kitisuru. Good morning, Eric, and do greetings from Dubai and have a good day. You know, Dubai, they started their weekend already. And then on Sunday, they go back to work. So, you know, good morning to you and all that good stuff. Ednah, what were you trying to tell me? You're trying to say something to me that
the podcasts are up.
Oh, the podcasts are up. So you can actually, yes, they are indeed. The podcasts are up and you can find them, Standard Digital. Rosh John is in the Mambo Matatu. I choose to salimate you guys. Goteni Apple, my all-time morning trio. Good morning to you. Tuned in from Eldoret. We had no power here for 3 hours last evening. He's asking the question, KPLC, did you switch something off? Can you put it back on? Gasheri Wambinjiwe says, good morning. Blessed weekend ahead. And quite a number of people online, whether it be on Facebook or YouTube this morning. Thank you for joining us and karibuni sana.
Everybody, what do we say to them?
We're serving the tea hot.
Bas. Chai inakoja ele motomoto. We were given some tea yesterday from, what's that tea is that called?
Oui.
Captain what? Captain? No, what's the estate called? That, you know, she's saying that the estate is called Keep on Teaching and Teach.
Let me find it. Let me see. It's called?
There.
I can't see very well.
Okay. Anyway. Okay. It's from Kericho. Chai kutoka Kericho. Yes. Let me give you today's proverb.
Do you like that?
Dawn doesn't come twice to wake a person up. Dawn doesn't come twice to wake you up.
Only comes once.
You wake up or you don't.
If you don't, you've passed it.
Shauri yako.
Different time of the day.
It goes.
Amanda.
Yeah. Sawa.
Ni sawa.
Haya. Headlines.
Very clear. All right, let's look at the headlines. Oh, heavens, is what's on the front page of the Standard this morning. My newspaper has disappeared.
Which one?
The Standard. I had it.
You had the Standard?
I did.
Let me give you the Standard.
Thank you. I'll get another one. Oh, heavens, why Ruto is on the spot. Is he really, though? Well, he's on somebody's spot. Whereas the president has come out firmly to declare a fierce war on corruption, he is walking a tightrope after his proclamations on how to slay the stubborn dragon appeared to border on extrajudicial methods, triggering furious protests from Kenyans. So I guess he's on the spot in the court of public opinion. Okay. Code of conduct. Churches move to self-regulate. Really? Okay, we'll look at that. WorldCoin probe. How state agencies slept on the job. So there was a job. Somebody was sleeping. People went and pictured the irises and got 7,000 shillings. And now we're looking into it and saying, this actually should not have what? Should not have happened. It's been revealed. All you need to know on the teachers' pay rise, who got what, who was the lowest paid, who was the highest paid, and the categories of those payments. That's all carried on page 6 of the Standard. New push for better maize prices. Now, when you say better maize prices, what does this mean? The prices that you pay to the farmer for them to bring you a 90 kg bag of maize, or are we saying that you, who is the end user or the buyer, this is a better price because that is what you will pay for it? We'll look into the details of that. Okay, on the front page of The Nation, back down. Now, it's not a sweet story, but it is one about sugar anyway. How the tycoon lost a vicious sugar battle. Cornered is what they're calling him. Days after President William Ruto issued a warning to firms and individuals that had sued Mumias Sugar to either withdraw the cases or face the consequences, billionaire businessman Jaswant Rai yesterday followed in the footsteps of Dubai-based Vatox Resources, dropping all applications that were pending against the miller at the Court of Appeal. What happened is the question. All right, there's a story there of XCS Macharia siblings fight for their father's property. Okay. The property, you know what? Property wars are across the world are major things.
Yep. particularly Succession.
Yes, Succession was it's terrible. People are held in this limbo of what is going to happen for years. They go to court, people you once loved, you end up fighting with them. It just becomes crazy. The court denies Mathe Wangara bail in drugs case. Kwanini? The DPP nominee tells MPs why big fish cases were dropped. So the DPP nominee seems to understand already why we're not seeing some of these cases come to court. So this should be fun. Write off debts of struggling universities, urges Machogu. He says, look, even if you try every day, morning and night, and 4 times on Sunday, these guys are not going to be able to pay these things. So you know what? Let's just start from scratch. There's also a story carried here on the top of the nation. No more KCPE, KCSE exams in hospital beds. Those who fall sick to sit supplementary test. That used to be the case. That if you happen to be sick at the time that the exam is being administered,
you will sit a test later.
Yeah, but it used to be that they will bring you the test in your bed. But now they've said, you know what? There'll be another test that you'll sit later. We cannot continue to do that.
Yeah, it's actually not fair.
It isn't. You're not well.
Yeah.
You know, you're in hospital because you're not well. And all your faculties are not operating in tandem. So how are you going to do an exam?
Yeah.
That's what it looks like.
Okay, let me tell you about the Business Daily. Ruto plans compulsory 2.75% NHIF deductions. Compulsory. President Ruto's plan to make it mandatory for every household in Kenya to contribute 2.75% of its income to fund a new social health fund will see the government take at least 20% of the monthly pay from Kenyans earning 50,000 and above in the latest onslaught on payslips.
My God. 20%
of people earning people earning 50,000 and above.
If you earn 50k, he wants to take 10,000
on taxes, housing,
everything together. Yeah, it looks like 20%.
Gone.
So if you have 50k coming to your account every month, you just know that about 10,000 of it is going.
Yeah, if you've signed a deal where you say that your 10k is going.
Sheesh.
Okay. Which again, if you look at it, those who earn 100,000, 27,000 bob is going.
We're left with 83 to start combining.
Yep. Business Daily has learned that the Social Health Insurance Bill 2023 will also make it mandatory for all Kenyans to be members of a new social insurance scheme, which will replace the current NHIF to enjoy government services. So what basically has done those, when repealing the NHIF Act and introducing those 3
funds,
then it says that what we're going to have is one main one, the Social Health Insurance Fund, and then it will manage the other 2. So you're paying all that money into that one fund. But 2.75 was a conversation anyway, even with the NHIF. It's not like this new bill is introducing something extra. No, this is a conversation. Higher. KRA hits used car imports with more taxes again. The Kenya Revenue Authority has hit used car importers with a fresh round of tax increments after capping the maximum depreciation rate at 65% of the value of the vehicle from 70% previously. Pamela Hago, the acting commissioner for the Customs and Border Control Department, instructed the KRA staff to apply a new depreciation rate schedule for cars effective today. This directive will see taxes rise by more than 14% for vehicles manufactured in 2016. That's largely imported by dealers currently because of Kenya's 8-year age limit for used cars. Lowering the maximum depreciation rate, which the taxman says is in line with other countries in the 7-nation East African Community bloc, will raise the value applied when calculating import duty. Very expensive. Expensive. Higher. The ticker headlines. Kenya's African payment platform bid under review. Fahari buyout leaves real estate to the rich. Hopes of making real estate investing accessible to the wider public have been derailed in the wake of plans to restrict property fund Ilam Fahari I-rate to wealthy individuals and institutions. Another headline, Airtel Uganda sweetens IPO with free shares offer. Airtel Uganda will offer free shares to investors participating in the 31.3 billion shilling initial IPO, which opened on Wednesday in an effort to spur uptake. So it's like buy one, get one free. It's a bog off. Kinda. Today is Friday. The Nairobian is here. Several headlines in the Nairobian. Number one, season of exchanging vows. VIPs love for secret weddings. And they're looking at Alvin Otangula and Marianne Mudavadi, the latest to say I do in exclusive ceremonies only attended by the who's who, close-knit family members and cherished friends. Continuing a trend seen for years in the country, where those who's only do who's kind of weddings.
Weddings, yeah.
Yeah, but how different is it from the others?
See, even those others is who's who. So it's just that who's your who is different from who is mine.
Yeah. Alarm. The number of Kiambu youth dying by suicide shots up. Can you imagine? Higher. Small headlines. Giant snakes are eating chicken and pets in Kitengela. Majabu. Kitengela, they are giant snakes eating chicken.
Chicken.
And pets. Rivalry. Ex-Kenyan athletes flying other countries' flags. And then there's a story on page 22. Nairobi women slaying in hair braids from dump sites.
Say what?
Yep. People go collect hair that's been dumped in dump sites, come do a bit of sprucing it up, they put it back in the market. Alafu na usiwa kama mupya, and you're just buying braids that have been collected from the dump site. I'll tell you the story. It's on page 22. Page 17. Sexual spark in marriages at 0.
It's a very sad something.
Yeah,
very sad state of affairs
in all fronts. On all fronts.
It's not. There's no good thing about that statement, that story, that headline.
33 minutes after 6, 27 minutes to 7. Let's take a look at traffic. We'll look at the stories in great detail.
All right. So now, getting through to 6:30, a little bit of traffic now still building on Jogo Road. Landis is free and clear. If you're doing anything on Landis Road today, or if you want to use Landis Road to get to where you're going, now is the time to do so. I cannot promise you what will happen in the next 5 minutes, but I can say from what I see right now, Landis and you, get on it now, because later you might not be able to. Are you coming off a Thika Superhighway? You'll be fine till you get to the Pangani underpass, and then that bottleneck's going to squeeze you all through as you're trying to either get towards Wangari Maathai or you're going then towards Moranga Road. So, pick your poison. We're not sure what's going to happen thereafter. It looks good coming off Wayaki Way. Nothing happening on James Gishuru or on Chiromo right now. It's easy street, boom, boom. You're in the city, or in Westlands if you're coming from the city. So how about we take advantage of it now? The roads are slippery, so be careful. The fog is low in some parts, so put your lights on and let's keep things moving one way or another. This Friday, let's talk on Spice FM, KE on X.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice.
Look at very many stories.
Let me tell you really quickly what's going on with sugar. 6, 7, and 8. This whole thing that brought about the heavens and jail and deportation. This is the bed of that story. All right? Now, how Ruto cornered sugar baron in pitch battle to control struggling miller. That is what this headline is. Tuesday last week, top executives at all sugar millers gathered at Kilimo House in Nairobi for an emergency meeting called by AFA, which is the Agricultural Food Authority. The chairman, Cornelis Serem, wanted to iron out the thorny issues that had divided the firms, particularly in the closure of factories. We saw the widespread closure of many factories around the country. The heated morning meeting lasted nearly 4 hours and was attended by, among others, sugar tycoon Jaswant Singh Rai. The elephant in the room was AFA's decision to close factories in Western Kenya for 4 months, apparently to allow time for young cane in the farms to mature. Because if you don't have cane, you cannot process. And rather than keeping open and paying people on a daily basis when we're not doing anything, let's close, let the cane mature, we harvest the cane, and we can get back into production. N'est-ce pas? Now, what had particularly irked some of the sugar barons was AFA's decision to give milling license extensions to state-owned Chemelil Sugar and privately owned Kibos Sugar which is owned by Raju Chathe Patel. Follow me so far?
Okay.
Now, leading to accusations of favoritism. That why do you extend for these guys and not anybody else? When Mr. Rai rose up to speak, however, he chose to focus on a different issue. The billionaire dwelt on what, in his view, urgently needed to be done since the sector, or rather to save the sector. He went on to praise President William Ruto's fertilizer subsidy, terming it a game changer that would boost sugarcane yields in the next harvest. Last year, a government subsidy introduced by President Ruto cut fertilizer prices from 6,500 to 3,500 for a 50-kilo bag. This month, the president announced a further reduction to 2,500 ahead of the short rains planting season in October. Now, 3 days later, Rai was abducted in broad daylight by an unknown assailant at a junction along Wood Avenue in Kilimani. Right? His question was, this shortage of sugar was also caused by a shortage of fertilizer. No farmer could afford such fertilizer prices, which had a big impact on yields. That was what he said during the meeting. Okay, so then he was abducted. What really happened during his 2-day kidnap ordeal remains a secret only known to him and perhaps close family friends, as the businessman had remained mum on the matter. 4 days after the abduction, Rai set in motion a legal process that would appear to be the beginning of the loosening of his stronghold on Kenya's sugar sector. Nation has learned that on August 29th, Rai wrote to his lawyers, instructing them to withdraw all cases filed at the High Court and Court of Appeal by himself. West Kenya Sugar Company and Vatox Resources, which had challenged the 20-year lease awarded to Uganda-based Sarai Group to manage Mumia's Sugar Company. Because he's saying, why should this be the case? You're shutting down across board. Why should you allow these guys to continue to? And we then will go at losses. Everybody else goes at losses. These guys are allowed to operate, and you're trying to level out or regulate the sugar sector. Should not happen. What do? We go to court.
As long as he's not telling us.
He raises an issue during this meeting at Kilimo House. His cases are in court. He's kidnapped or whatever happens to him. He comes out. He drops the cases. Put together whatever you want to put together.
He's not telling us what happened to him those 2 days. We can put any matter of conjecture.
Sure.
Maybe it was a meeting that he went and had a meeting with some very senior, powerful individual. Yeah, his meeting was hurriedly organized on his behalf. So he was just being taken to this meeting. And he was told, my friend,
Mambo ni matatu. It is interesting that the president, while on his tour of Western Kenya last week, announced that the government plans to invite a new investor to take over Mumias, indicating that Mr. Rai's Uganda-based sibling Sarbijit Singh Rai of Sarai would also have to drop their interests in the miller. So essentially, we're taking over this thing. We'll have nothing to do. Forget it. Just leave it alone. You're not going to have anything to do with it. Didn't sit too well.
Okay. Hi, let me tell you, yesterday, Kithure Kindiki went to Nyeri House.
Again? Okay.
He went there. And he was saying, no. You know, passports, 58,000 was the backlog. We've got to drop this one to 50,000, blah, 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 and all those stories.
These are the stories.
The National Treasury has set aside 1.3 billion shillings for the Immigration Department to enable it upgrade its equipment and therefore improve service delivery. 1.3 billion shillings has been set aside to help them buy these new printers, new toner, I don't know what paper, so that they can now print for us the passports. Okay. At the same time, Kithure Kindiki says border riders and people who idle around Nyeri House Immigration's headquarters will no longer be allowed in the area, and APs have been ordered to clear all crowds in that vicinity. Anybody hovering around Nyeri House, toka, kwenda. These are some of the pronouncements made by the Interior CS during his visit at the immigration headquarters yesterday. He said the aim of his visit was to encourage staff to work hard, even as the state seeks ways of improving their equipment and refurbishing the premises, and to warn officers who have tarnished the department by making it a den for criminals who frustrate Kenyans seeking passports. Okay? he says, gone are the days when some 2,000, 5,000 or 10,000 issued illegally will be the basis of persons being given priority in this building. We will ensure this place is cleaned of the few corrupt individuals, spoiling the name of many dedicated security and immigration officers who work here. Okay? So he said more intelligence has been gathered on how a bribery racket in the immigration operates, and more arrests of those involved will be made soon. They have gathered more intelligence, and I swear,
we'll soon arrest.
Soon, we'll arrest people here. There'll be no more this. In fact, APs, can you make sure nobody hangs around here, okay? Because you're hanging around here, that's how the bribery happens. Because, I mean, when people are hanging around here and my officers are in here, they can easily be bribed. Now, if people are far,
to collect the bribe.
Yeah.
But if they're far, they will not be tempted to be bribed.
This story, Kithure Kindiki is telling us something here. Okay? Gordon Kihalangwa, the general, was a former boss in charge of immigration. He said the same kind of thing. Oh, people, please don't worry, we are sorting out. Nothing has happened. This is a story like any other. Until the day Kithure Kindiki will tell us so and so at immigration has been suspended, interdicted because of corruption. Until you take someone to court, until you tell us that this backlog has been dealt with. These are that sending people away from City Hall. Walking around City Hall is a crime, not City Hall, Nyayo House.
Look, Eric, until the day anybody who sits in a position of this kind of authority will grow a pair and decide to do something about this, you can talk until the cows come home. Apart from that, it is just talk. You know, you've investigated, you found out what the bribery is. Soon you will invest. When is soon? This evening, tomorrow morning, next week? What?
Very soon you will see action.
If there was a true desire to do something about these issues that plague whatever sector you are in, we would see it. After all, they keep saying when a lion just roars, you know it is not. You don't have to question, is it the lion roaring? No. What are we doing? What are we doing?
This one, Akuna. Kithure is just giving us stories, and we do not want more stories.
It's a story, as in I'm just waiting for once upon a time, and then I'm waiting to hear the end. At the end of it, it just sounds like no. Kenyans deserve better.
Yeah.
They do.
Tell us another story.
Okay, so the churches, as we're getting into the weekend, and there'll be all sorts of religious activities, they've now come up with rules for self-regulation.
Yes.
Okay? We've been asking, regulate, let's not see these things that we've been seeing, shakahola, I don't know, babies, no. So, churches have initiated a code of conduct and governance guidelines to counter state regulations. Okay? Led by Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission Chairman Bishop David Oginde, clerics under the National Council of Churches of Kenya, that's the NCCK, said the need for a code of conduct had become more urgent after the Shakahola debacle. I don't know that we can call it after the debacle because it's still ongoing. And the deaths. The leaders' actions came almost 4 months after President William Ruto formed a 17-member task force to review legal and regulatory frameworks governing religious organizations. You know, we had even forgotten that task force had been instituted. What have they been doing? Okay. It also allows the government's recent deregistration of several churches, including Paul Mackenzie's Good News International Ministries and Pastor Ezekiel Odero's New Life Care Center. The president emphasized that the primary responsibility of the task force would involve pinpointing existing loopholes that have enabled extremist religious groups to establish a presence in Kenya. So now the churches have come up with their own code of conduct, and they've said, look, you can do your own, but we, the ones who are practicing this thing every day and then getting into the church and the care of it, this is how we feel that we should actually govern and be governed. The plea to the government emphasizes the need for autonomy in governing its internal affairs.
Okay.
We understand, but we don't need you to come and now do this for us.
What is the meat of this proposal? What is their proposal? What do they want to do? Do they want to be licensing churches? Do they want to be
The 74-page document, intended to act as a compass for all churches, underscores the importance of fair and transparent employment practices, with an emphasis on adhering to biblical principles. It also promotes open financial reporting and accountability, urging churches to adopt good financial reporting systems and subject their accounts to regular audits by independent external auditors. Furthermore, the guidelines stress the separation of procurement and tendering functions from pastoral responsibilities, aiming to eliminate conflicts of interest and ensure integrity in financial matters. It also outlines specific steps for internal disputes resolution, advocating for alternatives like negotiation, mediation, and arbitration over litigation in civil courts. It advocates for the promotion of peace, unity, alternative dispute resolution mechanisms within the church community. So we should not be seeing all this kind of fighting up and down. We should not be seeing the lead pastor of the church now being the one to procure. No. We should not see things like that, and they understand the need for such a thing. According to the code, the church shall safeguard altars and pulpits from being used by politicians for political purposes. This is also in the code. Despite the numerous proposals put forth by the code, its effectiveness is met with the challenge of enforcement. So you can say all these wonderful things, but are you actually going to do it? In spite of the power relationship between congregants and church leaders, religious leaders are now calling on congregants to take an active role in activities in the church and call out rogue leaders.
Okay, so this is a good one. It's by Bishop Dr. David Oginde and his task force.
Yes.
There's the other one, the government-appointed task force of the Reverend Dr. Mutava Musiemi, which is still collecting views. Let's see how those two will marry and how they'll look at each other. Let me tell you this painful story of NHIF deductions and all. So we've said we are repealing the NHIF Act, and in its stead we are coming up with 3 different funds which will be managed under this major one called the Social Health Insurance Fund. The looming deductions will cut the take-home income for Kenyan workers whose monthly earnings have been hit by housing tax and increased contributions to the NSSF. So we have a housing tax, we have increased NSSF contributions, we now have a proposed 2.75% social health contribution. So the state will, through the pay-as-you-earn, NSSF, housing levy and healthcare contributions, take about 10,264, that's 20.5%, from people who are earning 50,000 shillings gross pay, up from the current 8,460. Workers earning 100,000 and above will get 27,389 or 27% going. The deductions highlight the pain of workers in funding this universal health coverage, affordable housing, and enhanced pension, in addition to other budgetary needs. So we see all of these things are basically social schemes. The universal health coverage is a social scheme. Affordable housing is also another social scheme. NSSF is also now looking into social security in retirement. Under the state-backed social health insurance bill, UHC will be modelled on 3 separate funds, one for preventive and primary health care, another one for primary referrals, and the third one for covering treatment of chronic diseases. These funds are to be managed by a single board and a single secretariat. That answers the question we had the first day. Based on the proposed percentage deduction on household income from both formal and informal sectors. This one is another conversation that we have. We're going to invite these people to come and tell us.
Necessary.
Yes. I've seen something in the papers today, and I just want to read it. It's an advertisement by the Parliament of Kenya. The National Dialogue Committee, public participation and submission of memoranda by the public to the National Dialogue Committee on issues of concern to the people of Kenya.
Here we go.
On Wednesday, the 16th of August and Tuesday, the 29th of August, the National Assembly and the Senate respectively established the National Dialogue Committee. The mandate of this committee is to facilitate dialogue and consensus building and recommend appropriate constitutional, legal and policy reforms on issues of concern to the people of Kenya, as framed by the National Dialogue Committee in line with the Constitution and the laws of Kenya, and respecting the functional and institutional integrity of state organs. The issues of concern.
What?
There are 5. Issue number 1, outstanding constitutional matters. And there are some 4 sub-issues here. 1 is the cost of living. 2, implementation of the 2/3 gender rule. 3, governance issues, including promoting national unity, inclusivity in public appointments. And 4, adequate checks and balances. That is issue number 1.
Oh, all that was number 1?
Yeah, that is issue number 1A.
Okay.
Issue number 2, electoral justice and related matters. Issue number 2A, restructuring IEBC.
Of course.
2B, boundary delimitation. 2C, audit of the 2022 presidential election. Issue number 3, entrenching funds into the constitution. 3A, National Government Constituencies Development Fund, NGCDF. 3B, National Government Affirmative Action Fund, NGAF.
Okay.
3C, the Senate Oversight Fund, a new one being created.
Yes.
Issue number 4, establishment and entrenchment of state offices. We establish and then we entrench the state offices. Issue number 4A, office of the leader of the official opposition.
Of course.
Issue number 4B, office of the prime cabinet secretary. We want to entrench it, the constitution. Issue number 5, fidelity to political parties, coalitions, and the law on multi-party democracy. Here, there is no ABC. It's just
like that.
Preventing interference with political parties.
Okay. Those are the ones they've
Those are the
agreed
5 issues. Those ones are issues of concern to the people of Kenya.
Okay.
Are we together so far?
We are together.
Now, Article 10 of the Constitution espouses the national values and principles of governance, which include participation of the people. Pursuant to Article 10 of the Constitution, the committee is required to engage with and consider submissions from stakeholders, collect views from the public, and engage experts, professionals, and other technical resource persons as necessary. In accordance with its mandate, the committee now here therefore invites members of the public and stakeholders to make representations on any or all of the 5 issues as framed by the National Dialogue Committee. You can write memoranda to the Clerk of the National Assembly, or you can submit oral representations at the public hearings, which are going to be held at a date to be communicated.
Okay.
Be prepared. We are coming to engage you, and we are going to have a public participation on issues of concern to the people of Kenya.
It's very good.
Okay? Those ones are the ones.
It's very good.
Hiyo ni mchezo wanatuchezea.
Jokers. Those are the ones that came into
the
those 2
main
papers.
thing here is issue number 4. Creation and entrenchment of the office of the leader of official opposition and Musalia Mudavadi's prime cabinet secretary office. It has been established. People say it's unconstitutional. President can name a ministry, whatever he wants to name a ministry. He can name Kithure Kindiki's Ministry of Internal Operations.
If you want.
And he can call it Prime Office of the President's Operations, or whatever. Calling it Prime Cabinet Secretary is okay. Now the issue is entrenching it to make sure that this person then has more powers.
And the position means that even after your term has been served, that there are certain things that will then happen for you at the cost of the state.
Yes.
Yes.
It is to make sure that after serving these first 5 years, the current holder of the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary will continue to enjoy some certain benefits from the state until they die. I will say again, that is what we'll see out of this. The other one, of course, IBC will be sorted out haraka, and then the cost of living, some money will be set aside, and we will say we are doing some unga subsidy, and that unga subsidy will last from between now and December, when the harvest is expected to be in the market, and blah, 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 and some 15 billion shillings will be eaten by you-know-who.
That's what's going to happen.
Sawa. Okay. In the meantime, as all that is happening, John Buddy is not happy.
Why?
Because a clause in the framework agreement signed between the president and the opposition leader could prove to be a poisoned chalice for the former prime minister in these bipartisan talks.
Why?
Opposition politicians are reading mischief in the clause that stipulates that the National Dialogue Committee will submit a list of agreed and unagreed issues to Parliament for consideration. Basically, the report of this committee will be taken to Parliament, just like a report of any standing committee or select committee. It will be debated by Parliament and adopted by Parliament, which means it can be amended by Parliament. Are we together? The provision seems to suggest that the 2 houses of Parliament will have the final say on issues where the team may fail to reach consensus opening up the dialogue to a battle of numbers between the two rivals. So if those in the committee do not agree on something, shall we open the servers? The guys say, no, we cannot open the servers.
This guy say, yes, we must open the servers.
So this issue has not been conclusively agreed.
So let's take it to Parliament.
Let's take it to Parliament. Numbers.
So Parliament essentially will vote, and then others will hide in the toilet, and others will be busy.
Yeah, drop that stuff. We news to the guy That is what they're saying. And the issue is being raised here by ODM Chairman John Badi and Kitui Central MP Makali Mulu on the side of the Azimio la Umoja coalition party, describing the provision as malicious and deliberate. They say the talks would only have a meaning and a meaningful outcome if the committee reached consensus on all agenda items before submitting them to Parliament. If they don't reach consensus, and then you have these issues and say, this one we have agreed, this one we have, it's in limbo.
John Badi might be up to something, but you know what? I don't think his thought is totally creative on his part, because it would be clear that somebody else thought about that too.
Yep.
And that's the reason why it's going to go to Parliament, that we know what we're doing.
It's hitting him too late.
It's hitting him a bit too late. Like, hello, where have you been? That was the point, sir.
That's exactly what we designed this thing to do. Yeah. So that's when they said, okay, so we'll accept all your issues and also you accept all our issues. Sawa. Let's just go to the table and talk. Sawa.
Yeah.
Well, all the issues will be put to the table. So we can agree. Yeah. If we don't agree, so we report to Parliament, the one that has appointed us. And if now we have to report to our appointing authority, which is Parliament, then Parliament will make the final decision. I mean,
but we agreed to talk, and we shockaroo on you.
Basically, what we are saying is that Kenya Kwanza's issues are the ones that will carry the day.
As Parliament will also carry the day.
Bas.
So no. Okay.
Hey.
Public universities today struggling with debt. The CS proposes a debt write-off for them. CS Mashogu has proposed a number of measures to bail out 35 public universities facing financial challenges. There are 35 of them in Kenya today. Ask yourself, how many public universities are there in Kenya in total? 35
many.
But 35 is a majority.
Wow.
And we're saying that the majority of them are having financial problems.
Wow.
Education Cabinet Secretary said the conversation around this is that universities owe 61 billion shillings, included the unremitted statutory deductions, bank and SACCO loans, and pending bills. He also indicated that the government owes universities 147 billion. Okay, so now if the government was to pay universities this 147 billion that they owe them across board, this 61 billion is in the minority of percentage. Surely they would have been able to now sort out their things. The question is, when you are not paying statutory deductions, when you deducted and did not pay them forward, where did they go?
You're paying other things.
We're paying other things, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a big one. This one, let's see how it's going to pan out. And yes, that conversation about whether KRA should waive the penalty, I think that's a very important one.
It is.
You cannot tell universities that now you owe 20 million shillings and then there's accruals of penalties and interest that ought to be paid to the same government. So we give... Anyway, it's 7 a.m., people. It's time for the news.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is News. I'm Dennis Aseto. The Director of Public Prosecutions nominee Renson Mulele appeared before the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee for vetting. Mulele said his net worth is an estimate of 300 million shillings comprised of his house and land property. During the vetting, Mulele, who served as an Assistant Director of Public Prosecutions, also decried underfunding of the prosecutor's office.
As you have put it here, I didn't know they're opening another court. You have said they're opening a court is Lucky Charm. Yeah. That translates into ODPP employing a prosecutor and support staff. We will not be able with the current situation. That is the biggest problem we have. They are ahead of us because we don't have funds. We can't move with them. And ideally, for the criminal justice system to move at the best scenario, we must be at par with judiciary. But as it is, we are not anywhere near. As a public servant, we are guided by Article 232 of the Constitution about values and integrity and all that goes with Chapter 6 as public servant. That will be my guiding principle, if confirmed by this committee, to be the next Director of Public Prosecutions.
Mulele was picked by President William Ruto on August 17th from a list of 15 candidates shortlisted by the Public Service Commission. And President William Ruto has now taken the war against corruption to the judiciary, warning some judges and magistrates who he claims are collaborating with corrupt individuals to steal public property and obstruct government plans. According to the president, judges, especially in the anti-corruption court, are the ones who are being used by the cartel in collaboration with some lawyers to abate corruption.
There are people in our judicial system who are facilitating corruption by working with the corrupt. They are part of the corruption enterprise and the corruption industry in Kenya. And those who have made it a habit to go and hide in court with court orders, we are going to make sure that the judicial officers who facilitate corruption in Kenya must also leave.
President Ruto also vowed to deal with the corruption network in the country. He says it's being developed in collaboration with the private sector, government agencies and county governments.
There are people in our judicial system who are facilitating corruption by working with the corrupt. That is why certain cases go to certain judges, because they are part of the corruption enterprise and the corruption industry in Kenya. And I want to tell you, all these collaborators, we will deal with them firmly and decisively.
Because East Member Parliament Babu Wino says the university funding model will kill education in the country, as only a few can afford it. According to the lawmaker, many deserving students will miss out of the scholarship. Babu says President William Ruto has failed thousands of students who use a help loan to pay their school fees.
We need to bring this house in order. We must recognize these children, and we must know that it is only education that will salvage these students from the bondage of poverty, from the shackles of poverty. You have to know that these students are chained by poverty, and you have to salvage them, whether you like it or not. Furthermore, these students, you advise them that they should join universities and nobody should send them away for fees. Once they report to various universities, how are they going to be accommodated? How are they going to get transport, money to pay as transport from various villages, from various slums to various universities? How are they going to buy food?
Still on matters, education and teachers living in rural areas are said to be among the biggest beneficiaries of the review in their salaries and allowances. The allowances harmonized in the new salary reviews will see the teachers not only get a salary hike of between 2.4% to 9.5% starting this month, but will also benefit from enhanced house allowances in the new grouping of regions. Under the new pay structure for teachers, the lowest earning teacher are the biggest beneficiaries, with a higher percentage of the hike at 9.5% going to them, while those on the higher end of the scale get at 2.4%. And the ongoing crackdown on individuals who have been abating corruption in the immigration department, especially on issuance of passports, will be extended to other region offices outside Nairobi. Speaking in Mombasa Immigration and Citizen Services PS, Julius Bitok said the operation, which has so far seen 4 suspected brokers arrested at Nyayo House, will be extended to other cities and towns like Mombasa, Kisumu and Kisii. Bitok reiterated that the government is determined to rid Nyayo House of conmen and middlemen who are suspected to be working with immigration officers to extort bribes from applicants seeking passports and other services. And police in Nairobi arrested 2 people and confiscated about 2 kilograms of suspected cocaine during the ongoing operation targeting drug traffickers in the country. This is News. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
Traffic on the Thika Superhighway this morning is getting just a bit crazy. Heavy traffic as you get towards Pangani Underpass, and then you're coming past that Outer Ring Junction. Quite a lot of that happening into the city. Not much beyond that, but we'll probably see some outbound traffic as we get closer to traffic hour. Coming in on Kiambu Road is also pretty busy. A little bit of movement coming out of Westlands and Uhuru Highway, feeding off of Mombasa Road, as well as Langata Road. All of that then meets at the Haile Selassie Junction into the city. Keeping an eye on things this morning. Where are you? There's a bit of a drizzle in some parts, so you want to be careful because the roads then will be slippery. Let's take a look at how this opens up closer to traffic hour. Let's talk on Spice FM. KE on X.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have CT Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The
7 minutes
Situation.
after 7. How are you? Welcome to September. It's the first day of the month. This Friday, happy Friday. Kenya's biggest conversation. Now live on KTN Home, on Spice FM, on YouTube, on Facebook. Catch up with our conversations everywhere, anytime, on YouTube and Facebook, and even on our podcasts on standardmedia.co.ke. This lovely Friday morning, we want to start preparing ourselves for next week. Climate talks are coming to Kenya. And we are going big on this. And we want to start that conversation now with a guest who's joining us. His name is Michael Onyango. He's the Deputy Executive Director at Alliance for Science. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Eric. Good morning, Du.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Great to be here.
Welcome to the hot seats.
Well, let's see. Don't sizzle me too much. Yes.
No, we'll try and maintain the temperature.
Climate talk after all.
Yes, you know.
It's cold outside, so maybe it's going to be in the Situation Room.
Studio warming.
Exactly.
Okay. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
You'll tell us about the Alliance for Science and what you do. And then we'll talk about a lot about the Africa climate and implementing effective climate adaptation measures in Kenya, what's being done and what has been done. But let me welcome you to the conversation with the day's proverb, courtesy of CT. He's away this week. He'll be back on Monday. Maybe come back next week, you may find him. Today's proverb is from South Africa. And it says, dawn doesn't come twice to wake a person up. Dawn doesn't come twice to wake you up.
That is absolutely true. That is so true. And, it simply means that you've got to catch whatever it is at the moment and don't think twice. Make a move. Do not debate whether it's wrong or right. Just go ahead and do it. Better than doing nothing. Yes.
When opportunity strikes.
Exactly.
Be ready to take it up.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
Very, very good.
Yes.
So tell us about Alliance for Science.
Great. So Alliance for Science, we are basically, we work primarily in the Global South, but also in the Global North. But our biggest, where our biggest presence is in the Global South. We are a science communication advocacy agency or network, if I may put it that way. And for us, the biggest thing that we do is to ensure that communities in the Global South are able to understand science at its simplest level and uptake it. So for us, I think that is the greatest thing that we do as Alliance for Science. Yes, we have a big presence here in Kenya. Actually, our Global South Hub is present here in Kenya. But we're also present in Latin America. We're also present in Southeast Asia. We do have a presence in the Global North. We're housed at Cornell University there. But like I said, our biggest presence is here. And why is the Global South so important? Well, 79% of the world's population, resides in the Global South. Yeah, and 39% of the global GDP is also from the Global South. So those are the reasons why we're particularly in that area. And I think some of the areas of interest, when I say that we try to make science totally understandable in its simplest forms, is some of the buckets. Of course, is food and nutrition. The other one is global health. The other one is climate change, hence next week's climate summit. And the one which we're going to be coming up next year is actually going to be traditional food and technologies. So that's something new that we're onboarding on. Right.
When you say that you want to make sure that communities understand science in its simplest form,
right?
How do you do this?
Well, what we do is, first and foremost, a lot of the scientists that actually work on a lot of so-called innovative or new projects in the Global South are actually people from the Global South themselves, and they're people from local communities. So what we've done is we've started demystifying science by ensuring that we have a lot of the scientists now speaking in local vernacular stations, for one, so that they're able to communicate in people's first languages in terms of the different scientific innovations or different projects that they're working on. But beyond that, also in terms of communicating, we have a lot of our resources which we've actually gone ahead and translated into local languages. So, for example, because we're in Kenya, I'll just give an example. In Kenya, we've currently translated about 10 different languages, issues around agriculture, so the people at the local level can be able to understand that. Yes, right.
All right. So climate is the buzz conversation.
Yes.
It's been that way for some years. Yes. We're looking at the first ever Africa Climate Summit taking place now next week. What would you say, I mean, sure, Kenya being the host of this, but what would you say are the issues that Kenya as a country is grappling with when it comes to this whole climate conversation then that must be addressed?
We just came out of the biggest drought ever, for the last 4 years, which has never happened before. But also just to, to ground it, I think, yes, climate is something that affects all of us across the world. And I'm happy that the Climate Summit is coming into Kenya for more reasons than one. First of all, Kenya is, a lot of people know this, is the only country in the world that has the most ecological zones. We've got 6 ecological zones. So I think that gives us a right to host the Africa Climate Summit. Brownie points to host it next week. Okay. But as you've said, one of the things is that, again, Kenya, only 1/3 of Kenya is arable. I think that is another big reason. And despite our challenges, we have tried very hard in terms of feeding ourselves and in terms of all the various hiccups and in terms of all the mitigations and the problems that have come out of the climate catastrophes that we've faced over the past last years or so. And as you know, starting from today, September, going on to December, we're going to have extraordinary rains. So being the host for the Africa Climate Change and having all the challenges that we did, I think we've got some big wins that we've also had as Kenya, which puts us in the right place to host this. And just not very far from here, in fact, neighboring us here, which is Kajiado County, I think that's a great example of some of the things that we have done, because Kenya is actually, when people think about Kenya, the first thing, or the first people that come to their mind are Maasais. And, the Maasais, the Ma community, rightfully, have been and a great example of the people who've been affected by the climatic changes that have happened. But we have seen them over the last 4 years having changed their lifestyles in order to adapt to the various effects of climate change. And just to give you one very strange example that most people may find shocking, the Ma originally never ate fish, but now they're fish farming, and they're also eating fish. But they traditionally looked at fish as being a snake and a forbidden food to eat. So coming back to you, for us, Kenya hosting the Africa Climate Summit, and just by giving the example of the Maasai who have changed so quickly in the span of 4 years for what they called taboo to adapt to the changes, shows that as a country, we are in the forefront of saying that we are ready to change, we're ready to lead, and hence hosting this particular, the three major events, the Africa Climate Week, celebrating that at the same time, the Africa Climate Summit, which is happening, and of course the side event, which is being hosted by us, also as Alliance for Science, the Climate Action Zone. So, and I'll speak a little bit more about why we're doing the side event a bit later on. Sure.
Do you think we're doing enough to highlight issues of climate change in this country?
No, we're not. Definitely not. No, we're just not doing enough. And
what would enough look like?
Well, enough would look like, I think first and foremost, I'm happy that, for example, being here in the studio, you are doing something about it. But I think when you listen, in fact, if you're probably to do, if you're to do some research and find out that how much is spoken about climate change across the vernacular stations, which is really where the most populace are listening to, not too much is being said. And but I also think that, but justifiably so, I think that I must also say that they may not have enough information or enough resources to be able to inform their conversations going forward. And like I said earlier on, as Alliance for Science, one of the things that we're very strong about and one of the things that we've been doing is trying to ensure that we can get the right people and the right information out so that when you have that conversation, it is based on factual information and not based on hearsay and not based on myths, because it is such an important conversation that you do not want to mislead people in a wrong direction. So one of the things I think that is very important is that, well, you probably know this, climate change has actually been discussed by scientists for the last 3 decades. But it's only people now, over the last probably 3 years have actually paid attention to it because they're now feeling it directly within their lives. So it's now, we really need to move the conversation away, from the scientists into the homes, into the households, and we have to find a way of doing that.
And then Mike would counter that and say that we've been having conversations about climate change, just not framing it the way you scientists would frame it.
Right.
It's a framing that's different. So scientists would frame it from a point of, the globe is warming, these are the degrees, this is what's happening, this is like that. But people have been talking about how things are changing in their hood.
I think you're right.
People talk about, we used to have this kind of seasons and predictability in our seasons. Now we don't. We used to be able to grow this kind of crops and they would mature in this long. Now they are maturing in shorter or longer. We used to be able to grow this. Now we can't grow it. We are adapting to this. So conversations are happening, just not the way the globe has framed climate change conversation.
I think you may be right in that, and I must say that as in the scientific research centers and scientific institutions are very closed in terms of how they engage with the outside world. I do accept that, and I do agree. And one of the things that is very important and that is not happening is that that has to change. It has to be reframed so that then more and more people can actually have insights into what it is that they're saying. And then the other thing is that scientists are not the best communicators. I must also say that. So that's also one of the challenges. But I think it's also a good challenge because it then gives room and space for people like yourselves to be able to come up with products and, for example, like podcasts that are able to now break it down in a manner and in a language that can be consumed by people and link it the way you've said it. For all these years, the things that you've been saying about the change of seasons, this is how it relates to what is happening within the research institutions, and that's how it links with the things that you've been talking about that have been happening around yourselves. So that is true, yes.
So have people made the link then between how climate and the environment has changed and how it affects their livelihoods? And even as you say that, the scientific jargon over the years has been that it's been elite, it's been sophisticated. Not to say that the people who are consuming this are not, but that the language that has been used over time And I'll give an example. A scientist sat in this chair a few months ago, and we've been hearing the climate conversation for 15 years. But in the words that she spoke is the first time that I was able to understand exactly what the greenhouse effect was. I've heard it. Yeah, I mean, I was in school at greenhouse gas. I never got it until she said it in that manner. And then now you're able to make the link between, okay, what she's saying and the things we see, that why you cannot be walking along a terrain somewhere and see trickling water and tadpoles like we used to see when we were younger.
Yes.
And for her to make that link between that and what we actually see happening, do you think that today, 3 to 4 years ago is now when you say people are actually saying, oh, wait a minute, this is how we can change. Do you think now the link has been made between the science and the reality?
The links are being made, but we still have a long way to go. I need to be honest about that. If the links were so well made, then I think more people would be paying attention to what's happening next week. More people would be interested. There'd be a lot of noise, there'd be a lot of conversations, but it is so removed from what they know or what they perceive to be the things that have affected their environment. And I guess that's why, for example, we have actually put up what we're calling the Climate Action Zone. And the whole idea behind the side event, which is the Climate Action Zone, which is going to be at Radisson Blu, is first and foremost to ensure that the average farmer, the young person, the women can come into the room and be part of the conversation and can also understand things at a level in which they want to engage. So we have very purposefully moved away from, I mean, we're supporting what is happening within the main summit that is taking place. But, you know, when you walk into those rooms, first and foremost, a lot of, you know, when you walk into a room where policy matters are being discussed as a young person, you're very intimidated because first and foremost, the people who are there don't look like you. So already, you know, keeps you, you know, yes, exactly, already intimidates you. So what we have done is we've created a whole different zone where we're allowing different players and different actors to come in, where we can demystify, where we can bring in people, as you have said, who are able to break down the matters in a way in which people can understand. But more than that, we're actually allowing people to have open conversations and to say the things that surely matter for them and to them within this whole conversation of the Climate Action Summit. But the other thing is also, but people only don't know the things that matter when they can relate to them, as you have said, when you can actually explain that the reason why you don't see tadpoles in the water anymore is linked to it's linked to the emissions and it's linked to this. So unless you can explain that in a way in which they get it and they understand it, it'll never work. So one of the things that we have also done is that so yesterday we spent a whole day recruiting young people. And the young people that we're recruiting are actually going to be what we're calling our SDG heroes. Again, SDGs, you and I may understand what SDGs are, but I tell you not and I kid you not. If we're having this conversation, within our vernacular stations and everything else, we're speaking to ourselves. So what we've done is that we're bringing the SDGs to life by literally making them into superheroes. So we auditioned young people to come in so that they will be the superheroes. But then because it's young people who already were being auditioned, already we started the conversation. Now we're linking those SDGs, especially particular SDG number 1 and number 2, which is zero hunger. And of course, there's climate action and all that. But then we're turning them into real life people who can now have a conversation with you. And you can now, they'll be dressed up and everything else, but you're now able to have a conversation. The person looks like you. He's more or less, he or she is more or less toned down and is not possibly dressed the way I'm dressed today and standing in front and looking at you. So I think it's very, very important that if this conversation is going to be owned by us, but beyond being owned by us, as Africa, as Kenya, we're suffering the most. And we, for example, people may not understand that, like a young person or somebody who's living probably in Kapenguria or somebody who's living in Lamu will not understand that why would the climate envoy for Kenya, P.S. Ali, be speaking about, first of all, why would you have a climate envoy?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a totally useful waste of a position. You know, why don't we give that position for another, to create, like for PS entrepreneurship and jobs?
Right.
You know, exactly. Why do we have a climate envoy? It is so important because the world committed last year in COP that, you know, they would resource Africa by 100 billion. They've never done that. So PS envoy, the climate envoy for Kenya, who's PS Ali, keeps reiterating that fact that, you know, we need that money. And the saddest thing is that at that 100 billion, what we actually need is actually 500 billion between now and 2030. Okay? And then out of that 100 billion, only 11.9 billion has been committed.
Only. So, and you see, the person, honestly speaking, who will be affected more than this is the younger people who have a longer life than we do. And they need to understand this.
And they need to understand this. They need to understand, why is it that we have a climate envoy? Why is it that climate action is here? And why is it that they need to take up this conversation and they need to push it at the level to their local politicians, so that then it becomes a subject matter, because this is a loss to us.
So then, Michael.
Sure.
So who attends the climate action zone at Radisson Blu? And how different are they from those that are attending the main summit at KICC?
So, the summit at KICC, as you know, has been convened, and credit, we must say, rightfully goes to President Ruto, who was very clear when he went to the AU summit and said that we had to have a summit whereby we moved beyond talk and we actually had pledges. And commitments being made. And that was the whole background towards the Africa Climate Summit, which is taking place next week. The Climate Action Zone, for us, is a side event that is parallel to the Climate Action Summit to ensure that the other players who ordinarily, like the farmers who I've just spoken about, the young farmers who may be, who may probably be growing something in Elgeyo Marakwet, who may be growing something in Kilifi, are able to come in and also say that for us, our lives have changed dramatically because of A, B, and C. And for us, these are the things that are important, so that also at the end of the Climate Action Zone, there can also be a declaration which can then be passed on. Now, one of the things that you know is that if you're not present, if your voice is not being heard, then you're not there. So we're trying to ensure that we can amplify those voices and ensure that those voices will be present. And let me make it clear, the voices are going to be at the African Climate Summit Zone, at the Climate Action Zone in Radisson Blu, are not only just from Kenya alone. We've ensured that we've actually brought people from around the continent. We're also ensuring that we're going to have like a deal room. So some of the financial commitments that people have been making before, we're very happy that the CEO of Green Building Climate from South Africa, they're coming in, and they're coming in to try and close some of the deals that are towards green building. Again, when you'll be at the main Africa Climate Summit, which is the government-run one of the things that's going to happen is that everything is going to be at a very high level.
Very, very top level.
Very, very top level. So for us, it'll be such a disservice when, first of all, this continent has the highest number of youngest people, but their voices will never count and will never be heard.
Okay, so I'm just trying to get, how do the young people access Radisson Blu? Are you inviting them?
We're inviting them, and
are you transporting them? Have you targeted, like you've mentioned Turkana in this conversation, you've mentioned Elgeyo Marakwet, you've mentioned various parts of the country where there are young farmers. Have you recruited farmers from those areas?
So what we've done is this. So
come to Nairobi.
Yes, we have various sessions, and yes, we've been sending out invites, and we still, I will leave later on, I'll actually give the email address here so that people can actually continue, registering and coming in. Yes, we have people who will be coming in from across the country. We're very happy that actually on what we're calling Day Zero, the governors from Laikipia, the governors from Homa Bay, the governors from Mombasa, will be present. So what we've done is we've actually ensured that we have communicators as much as possible to as many people through various informal networks. which are far lower than your mainstream media. We've gone through WhatsApp groups at the local level to ensure that we're really reaching out to people at the ground who ordinarily don't even have access to the newspapers, who ordinarily and then again, young people have a different total mindset in terms of what they consume and how they consume it. So we've tried to ensure that we're in those spaces and in those platforms so they are aware about what is happening and what is going on. But also, we've also tried to ensure that some of the people who will be in the main summit will also come across so that then they can hear and get an understanding. We've also been very clear that we're going to have sessions moderated by fellow young people in a sense that, again, they do not feel intimidated. They don't feel that this is some high-level event whereby I can't speak and what I speak may be stupid. Coming back to what you've said, people are very scared. If I ask what is greenhouse? Am I looking stupid? Is it a stupid question? We're trying to say that this is your place to come and be you, to come and learn and to come and be informed.
And understand. Let's take a break. We'll be back shortly. 22 minutes to 8, Kenya's biggest conversation. This morning, hosting Michael Onyango, the Deputy Executive Director at Alliance for Science. We are talking about implementing effective climate adaptation measures in Kenya. And the Alliance for Science is planning to host the Climate Action Zone on the sidelines of the Africa Climate Summit next week. The Climate Action Zone will be at the Radisson Blu, and they're saying, well, everybody come. He'll give us the emails where you can register. Michael, do you run? Do you jog, run, walk? Right? Do you exercise?
Yes, I do.
Very good.
Yes.
Now, I want you to prepare yourself because on the 29th of October, something big is happening in Nairobi.
Great.
Ndu, tell us.
It's the 20th edition of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon.
Okay.
You've participated in the marathon before.
Yes, I have.
It's the 20th time this is being done. It's on the 29th of October. And everybody's coming out, registering www.standardchartered.nairobimarathon.com. That's www.nairobimarathon.com for the 20th year. And this year, all proceeds go towards Future Makers. That's the campaign. It helps young people, especially girls and people living with disability, coming up to 20 years. Join us at Uhuru Gardens on the 29th of October as we celebrate 20 years of running. 2,000 bob. Let's do it on October 29th. Make a difference in some people's lives.
Okay. So you've grabbed your phone, go to nairobimarathon.com.
Okay.
It's chap, 2,000 bob, register, and then start preparing yourself.
And let's go.
And let's run.
Let's run.
We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Congratulations. You've seen the hand of the Lord.
Thank you very much. I've earned another title today this morning at Spice FM. Mama Justice, I don't mind it.
Joel in Kericho.
Salama sana Heri, habari ya asubuhi.
Salama bwana, mambo namna gani?
Salama kabisa bro.
Mambo ya Inamoi kuliendaje?
Mambo ya Inamoi, vile nilikwambia ndugu yangu, alienda asubuhi na ile gari ya kwanza.
I must have missed it.
So did I.
Even if somebody was to render you irrelevant, there is still work you can do. Okay, sawa.
I deserve to keep you accountable. You deserve to give me a report. You don't work for me. I don't work for you. You work for me.
Do you like that Freudian slip? Lovely, isn't it? Thank you very much.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 14, highs of 24, and we'll see highs of 26. In a mostly sunny Nakuru at 15, it's sunny at 14 in Nyeri, highs of 24, and sunny conditions at 13. Creeping in the morning in Eldoret, going to highs of 24. It's sunny at 23 in Mombasa, highs of 29, and we'll see 29 as the high as well in Malindi, where it's cloudy at 25. Sunny at 19 in Kisumu, and sunny at 17 in Kakamega. The sun is up at 18 in Kampala, highs of 29, and we'll see highs of 29 in a mostly sunny Dar es Salaam at 24. It's 12 and partly cloudy in Johannesburg, highs of 24 and lows of 12, and we'll see lows of 25 in a mostly cloudy Lagos, going to highs of 30. 32 will be the high in a mostly clear Kinshasa at 22.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever.
Heavy on Jogoro Road this morning as you're getting out towards the City Stadium roundabout. We don't see too much happening on Landis. Uhuru Highway is a dot of traffic all the way from the Nyeri Stadium roundabout through touching from Langata Road and Lusaka Road and then going towards Bunyala Road and coming in then from Upper Hill out towards Westlands. So we're looking at heavy traffic also on the Thika Superhighway, coming in heavy from the Outer Ring Junction. And beyond that, from Garden City, Kiambu Road is also busy right now. Limuru Road following in fine form with heavy traffic no matter where you look. We're also looking at traffic coming out of Westlands. It's heavy coming in from Parklands as well. And we're seeing also traffic coming in from Limuru Road, heavy from the Northern Bypass and United Nations Avenue. It's going to continue for most parts as we are in traffic hour proper now. Let's keep an eye on things, see what happens. What's going on in your neck of the woods? Are you stuck? Let us know. Find a good route. Let us know that as well. And let's talk on Spice FM, KE on X.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Our conversation continues with Michael Onyango, Deputy Executive Director at Alliance for Science.
So, Michael, even as we get into this, what are these amplified voices saying? Because we say it seems that already there's a demarcation between the scientists who are saying what they need to say about the warning signals that they've been sending out. We have governments led by one such President, William Ruto, who launches a summit like this in the country and for the continent, who are saying this is what governments must do, maybe having a little bit of a punch up with, you know, between North and South in terms of governments about their money and things like this. But then there are those who see and have to live with the effects of climate change and climate, climate change over time. And we are saying that there's an understanding now about what's really going on. But what are they saying? Because they're not going to start saying whatever they're saying at the summits or at the zones next week.
No.
These sentiments must have already started.
Of course, you're right, and do. And I mean, let's be honest. One of the things that we must never shy away from is that, people in the global north, by the time we're sitting around the table, they had done their homework. They know exactly what they want. They've prepared themselves, far more than we did. But I also want to blame ourselves because, sincerely speaking, when we send in our delegations into such serious talks, half the time the people that we pick that go there are not the right people. We get people going for all the wrong reasons, and I think we've seen this, and this is just not peculiar to Kenya. This is across the continent. So we're not sitting on the table, and we have the wrong people sitting on the table. And I think I must also say rightfully, and you're definitely right. There are peddlers who are influencing things. Yeah, and I mean we have to be honest about these things. Because we're not honest about them, we're never going to get to where we want to get to. So one of the things that we must be clear about as Africans is that we must be very clear about what it is that we want, and we must stop moving and shifting the goalposts.
But do we know what we want, Michael?
Yes,
do African governments know? Okay, let's just take different countries. Do we know what we want? I mean, I know what I feel about the climate conversation, but when we're looking at it from a governmental and policy level, country by country, do we know what we want? In order for us to build some kind of concert and unanimity around this issue, do we know what we want?
It's interesting.
What is that?
It's interesting. As of COP27, yes, we did know what we wanted. We're very clear.
Under the north to pay.
Yes. And then you see what happens is the moment we know what we want, then people who do not want us to get what we must have will do everything possible. And as you said, because we are multiple governments from multiple countries, then they will go in and, without a doubt, scuttle it. So we have to be, so we need to, some of the bigger players in the scene, some of the bigger brothers on the continent need to stand and their foot down, take the lead, and say, no, nothing will go forward without these things on the table. I feel very sad. You probably know this, both, if I take the example of Namibia and Ghana, there's so much exploitation in terms of the minerals, but they're very clear about what they want coming out of this going forward. So this is it. We've got to start coalescing around some certain issues and be clear about them and support ourselves going across. But again, it is interesting. I was reading something. I can't remember which country it was, where they were extracting. I think it was Niger, where they've been extracting minerals by this French company. And then what happened is, when the government changed and said, okay, now you need to pay us more royalties. What they did is, now the subsidiaries started selling at a different arrangement, so that the royalties, which was increased, actually got to be less than what they should have gotten. So, look, these games have been there for a very long time, and that's I keep on saying that coming back to us, the younger generation has now got to learn that, listen, this is what has happened over the years and over the time. You've got to hold your governments accountable. You've got to push them. You must not give them room. You must not give them space. And that's why I keep on saying, it'll continue happening if the majority of the people who are actually affected have got no idea that these conversations even took place or even happened, and they rightfully do not have any idea, because your lives are so difficult. Our lives are so difficult. They're just trying to survive for the day. They don't have the bandwidth to start thinking about anything extra. But now, because your survival of the day is being affected, you're now listening. You now have no choice, because now you're listening.
And you start participating.
Yes, because now you're seeing the direct effect in your house, in your home, in your life. So, coming back to you and coming back to what I'm saying again, so that's why for us it's very clear we want more and more people to
actually more participation at this local level.
Yes, at the local level, yes.
Which I think credit goes to the fact that we are hosting the first ever continental climate conversation, which says we are going to come up with a Nairobi declaration, which we shall then take to the African Union, to the United Nations General Assembly, to the next global climate talks, which it's a beginning of harmonization of the African language and the African ask. In the lead up to next week, though, do you have an inclination of what the Nairobi declaration will look like?
Well, I have an inclination of what some people are trying to move it away from.
Right.
And I need to, one of my reasons for being here, we're all Africans and this is our home and this is our country across the continent. We have to look after ourselves. So there's a group called PACJA, which is the Pan-African Climate Justice. And I think it's very important that we must pay attention to what they're saying. And we need to amplify what they're saying. And just some key things. So one of the things is that when some of the people have been trying to shift goals away from where it is that we should be, they did issue a statement, and we need to be cognizant of that statement, where they've actually, and I'll just highlight just a very few things, so they're still advocating for fair and ecological, just and equitable transition to a low carbon climate resistant future that respects the rights and dignity of all people. But I think the most important thing that they are saying, and which they're really pushing, is that for a participatory and an inclusive approach that engages all relevant and state actors. Okay. So I think, to me, that is the most important thing, because remember, despite the fact that over 19 presidents are going to be here between 17 and 19 over next week, they actually hold fort for us. So they have to listen to primarily what we say.
We have to send them to the table.
Exactly, to the table. Not necessarily what they will find on the table. I want to bring back to us. So, and that's why, Ndu and Eric, I think it's great that you're doing this, but I think it's great and it's important that people must be aware that the Africa Climate summit that's happening in Kenya is not some far removed event that has got nothing to do with their lives. It totally and absolutely affects their lives on a daily basis, whether you're in Malawi, whether you're in Mozambique. I mean, you all know about the cyclone that happened, Freddie, in Malawi. And look at what happened. Yes. More than 1.9 million people were totally displaced. I'm even scared of what's going to happen to us for the El Nino coming forward between September and now. I am actually really frightened because we don't have the resources. We're not ready. And then the saddest thing is that all this water is coming and nobody's going to harvest it.
It will go.
It'll all go. It'll all go. So, and again, and that's why when you heard me speaking that we're trying to get the counties in, because we're trying to ensure that some of these conversations are then being devolved down to a level where, they're then being carried over and being owned at that particular level too.
Coming back to what you've just said, you have an inclination of what some people are trying to make sure they block from the conversations. What should we watch out for?
Anything that
in the whole of next week.
Anything that moves away from the language that was agreed on already at COP27 last year, anything that is diverting us from that, we must move away from it. They must pay. On the finances, we must not renegotiate
100 billion.
We must not renegotiate that. That must be a totally closed area, non-negotiable, no discussion. Yes, that must be committed to.
Okay.
The West said they were going to do it; they have to do it. But the way nature and God is very fair, extremely fair. If you can look at what's happening in the West over the last few months, all the climate deniers, all the people that said that this thing was some myth, some hoax, they've now actually seen it right at their doorsteps. So, but they need to be fair and honest to us because we've met the biggest brunt of it. And the other thing is this, one of the things that we need to understand as a people, as a country, why is it the Africa Climate Zone and why didn't each country do its own? First and foremost, our ecological zones, our resources go beyond the borders. They're shared. The cloud doesn't come, the rain doesn't come and stop at the border of Uganda, and then it doesn't come across Kenya. They are shared. They're shared. If you look, there's this beautiful book which I keep saying, it's a coffee table book, and I really want to buy it. I once saw it at the UN that had all the tributaries of the rivers of Africa. And if you saw them, the main arteries and everything, how it goes across the whole continent, they understand just how interconnected we are.
It's one word.
And that's thank you. And that's why we must have that one voice on that table. So we must protect the issue of climate finance. That is one area that we have to protect. But again, going back, the language that was agreed on at COP27, that must stand.
But does that give them a carte blanche? Now, if they pay 100 billion shillings, are we giving them the license to continue polluting?
No, we're not.
What are we saying?
No, the document is extremely detailed. And anybody who's listening, please kindly do Google, because you can't find it. Just Google the Nairobi Declaration. Please Google it and please read it. It's not that deep in terms of what is there. It's important that we be aware. It's important that we consume this thing so we know why people are here, so we can contribute to the conversation. Because a lot of you who are listening here are actually going to be there. So if you're going to be there for the right reason. Be there for ourselves. Be there for you. Be there for your family. If that's the best way that I can possibly put it. Pay attention to the details, because it does affect you. It does affect us. It's not some far removed thing that is for somebody who's in Paris or somebody who is sitting in New York.
Michael, one of the things that we can't run away from, and I think you're alluding to this 100 billion that was committed to for payment, it's not so that something can happen. It is because something happened.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's why this money is coming. So once you pay it, then we're looking at perhaps a little bit of the loss then has been compensated for. We're not saying that you pay this so that then moving forward you can, okay? But this conversation, I think, is at the very heart of, other conversations that will be taking place next week. There's still very many people who feel the African continent, within the African continent and other countries in the global south, who feel that they should not have to participate in all this climate business, because again, we're bearing the brunt of actions having been taken by the global north, and now we all have to suffer, and we're now being asked to participate in a process. It all sounds like one, hypocritical position after another. But what do we do about that particular sentiment? We cannot fault it because it is true. But how can we say that we would like to move and make sure that we do not continue to suffer, even though certain things did happen?
And do you make a very good point? And actually, and that's why, again, I'd encourage people to read the the Pan-African Climate Justice Statement. It's called the PACJA report. And it's very clear in terms of what you said. It goes beyond, like what you said, just a conversation, but it demands that going forward, some certain things must stop and must not happen. We must first and foremost, the push to get us to consume some certain kind of energy resources which are not aligned and which are actually dangerous and do nothing to help the situation should not be on the table. One of the things is that, first of all, there's a lot of geopolitical and economic interest in these things. And that is why a lot has changed over the last few weeks as in who will be coming and who's trying to get into the room, into the Africa Climate Summit. In fact, you'd ask yourself, this is meant to be an Africa Climate Summit, why the big interest from so
non-Africans?
many, yes, from non-Africans. What is it? Because they want to ensure that their influence remains and stays, and exactly so that they can get away with what you're saying. So I think we're very clear that the payment is because you need to pay for what you did.
Yeah.
It's not you're paying because you're doing anybody a favor, but then going forward,
it's not benevolence.
Yes, it's not benevolence. I think that's very, very clear.
Reparation.
Yes, and that has been debated, that's been contentious for very many years, and that was cleared up at COP27 last year.
Right.
So let us not, once we've agreed on something, let us stop trying to reopen it and renegotiating on that again. So that needs to be a closed chapter. And we now need to move forward into what next that we need to do. Yes.
Somebody's asking, when you talk about carbon neutral, low carbon, what exactly do we mean?
Well, okay, so carbon neutral, and I'll try and be as simple as possible. So one of the things is that when all the gases go up into, when all the carbon goes up into the air, it actually eats on. Okay, so I need to stop being.
All right, here we go. Now this is what
exactly
climate for Africa does.
Exactly. Yes. So carbon neutral simply means that this is it. That can we have resources and can we have products that we're using that are not ensuring that the rain patterns, the droughts, continue being enhanced.
So we reduce our emissions.
Exactly.
Is it we reduce our emissions or we increase our absorption?
Both, simultaneously. We've got to do both together. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, both.
Which brings me now to the issue of carbon trading.
Yes.
And there are some communities in this country that are benefiting from carbon trading. But is it fair and just?
No, it's not fair and just, but at least they're benefiting. But it's not fair and just because, like I said, people don't understand a lot of the people who've negotiated on their behalves have not been very honest about the things that they've put on the table. And again, that's why we keep saying that we need to have more and more people in the room. Last week, we actually had a convention where we brought across lawyers, environmental lawyers from across Africa. And the whole idea behind that was we want to ensure that people in the law fraternity also have an understanding. So when you're actually in court, when you're actually debating these things, you're clear about it. You're not at a place of disadvantage. So we have extended and we continue to work across and with different groups of influence that are so important within the ecosystem. We're very happy that next week, one of the people who are actually going to be at the summit is Lady Justice Chiwatama, who's from Zambia. And she's been handling very complex issues in her court around people who have been brought to court because, they uprooted or they cut vegetation. But she had never linked it with climate. So she'll be here to share some of her experiences. So I think what we're trying to do, again, as I'm saying that, we're trying to show the linkages between, and we're trying to ensure that if the lawyers, if the judiciary, if all these other arms do not understand what's going on, for us, it's a co-convening space so that these different voices can come and interact, and we're able to ensure that more and more of us, especially the so-called professionals who finally make the big decisions, who are on the table, are able to make better decisions for us as a people and as a continent.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
So back to what the Alliance for Science is planning for next week.
Sure.
The Climate Action Zone.
Absolutely.
It's going to be at the Radisson Blue Hotel. And this is the Upper Hill one.
Exactly, at the Upper Hill one.
Okay.
Precisely.
What dates, what times, how will one register?
Great. So I'm going to give, because like I said, we want to ensure that even those who may not have access to internet can register. I'm going to give a phone number first, so that then it is very easy for people to get in touch with us. So the number is 0722 856 772. Speak to Barbara. She will help you register so that you can be able to come on board. But if you have access to the internet, please go to the website climateactionzone.org. I'll say that again, climateactionzone.org. It's all one word. And I'll just repeat the number one more time. That's 0722 856 772. Speak to Barbara. And like I said, we do want to have as many different actors and voices in the room.
Registration is free?
Registration is free. There's no charge at all for registration.
What should one expect when they come there?
Well, one should expect, being able to come and meet with people from, great. We have some delegations coming in from Bangladesh, some farmers from Bangladesh to also some south-to-south collaborations, so they can see and they can hear what they have done and how they've mitigated their crisis, which has been there. We have different scientists. We're going to have different forums on green building. We have another on relief to resilience. So we have a fairly diverse and eclectic mix of things that are happening around the matter of climate change and the African Climate Summit. So I think it'll be an interesting space for people to come and learn, engage, meet, but most importantly, lend their voices to what they want and must happen at the end of the week.
So panel discussions, plenary sessions,
yes, exhibitions too. Yes, we do have some exhibitions also. We probably have about 15 different exhibitors and different booths which will be there too. Yes.
One who's not able to attend, can they follow this online?
Absolutely. We're actually going to be, so some of the sessions we will be live on Facebook, on YouTube, and also on terrestrial TV. So if you do follow the hashtag Climate Summit Zone, you're able to keep up with us, so that then you can find
Climate Action Zone.
Climate Action Zone. That's going to be the hashtag. So that you're able to keep up with us and you can able to know where we're at, especially if you're in a distance and you want to join us via YouTube or via Facebook. We will be transmitting live too.
Okay.
Absolutely, yes.
Something to look forward to.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing that there'll be all these multiple conversations taking place in Nairobi next week. So at the end of it, we hope that we'll have one united voice and more awareness among all our communities. Michael, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Eric. And I must say this on air. Anytime I go for a VO, it's either Eric who gets the job and not me.
All right, next one I'll walk out.
Not a problem, but good work, and thank you all for having me here. And please, if you have time, do come across.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Michael Onyango, Deputy Executive Director, Alliance for Science. He's been our guest this morning. Keep it here for more. Good morning, 8 a.m.
Spice up your life.
morning. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. President William Ruto has urged the political class to rise above beyond political party interest that may hinder the country's development. Speaking after completing a 5-day development tour in Western Kenya, the president said the leaders must unite in order to deliver services to the people. The head of state urged them to put aside their political differences and focus on empowering the people. During the meeting, the leaders drawn from the larger Gusii region handed the president a memorandum of understanding containing a list of ongoing and stalled development projects that they want to be implemented. The projects include health facilities, water, roads and electricity connectivity. President Ruto also warned that all public officers facilitating corruption will first allow. The president added that selfish interest of frustrating development projects in the country, saying the corrupt will no longer hide in courts with court orders. He was accompanied by a host of local MPs, senators, Governors Simba Arati of Kisii and Amos Nyaribo of Nyamira, and Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Machogo. Prime Cabinet Secretary has assured of the government's commitment to providing a conducive environment for investment. Speaking after unveiling the Okoh Cloud Data Center and the Climate Resilience Innovation Challenge at the Kenyan Industrial Park in Naivasha, Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi stated that the event marked a significant moment in Kenya's digital transformation journey. The Prime Cabinet Secretary highlighted the importance of the launch, which he referred to as the breakthrough in cloud, and discussed how it represented a major step forward for the country's technological advancement. And Inspector General of Police Japhet Koome has reiterated Kenya's commitment to continue collaborating and cooperating with the International Criminal Police Organization Interpol in the fight against crime. IG Koome made the remarks when he hosted the Executive Director of Police Services at Interpol, Stephen Kavanagh, at the National Police Services Headquarters, Nairobi. During the meeting, Kavanagh expressed his gratitude to National Police Service for sustaining its strategic support to Interpol through secondment of police officers, Interpol projects, joint regional operations, and police databases. Former Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Peter Munya will no longer be a witness in the Aror and Kimwarer case. This is after prosecution failed to lead Munya to testify over the 63 billion shillings corruption scandal. The former CS was supposed to testify against former CS Henry Rotich and others, but instead said that they are dropping him as a witness. Early this week, the court issued a warrant of arrest against Munya after he failed to present himself in court to testify. He presented himself in court Thursday, and after taking to the dock, the prosecution applied for an adjournment, saying that they are not ready. The magistrate declined to adjourn the matter, thereby forcing the prosecution to drop Munya as their witness. The trial magistrate gave a warning to anybody trying to interfere with the case, including non-production of witnesses, saying that he will resist to exercise his powers and cite parties to contempt of court. And omissions by regulatory authorities coupled with the lack of a coordinated approach to rein in on tools for humanity, the parent firm for WorldCoin has been blamed for exposing Kenyans to data exploitation. In its submissions before the National Assembly Ad Hoc Committee investigating WorldCoin activities, Kenya's communication authorities said overlapping regulatory mandates among agencies hindered a coordinated response. Communications Authority Director General Ezra Chiroba told MPs that while the Office of Data Commissioner is mandated to ensure data privacy protection, legal loopholes might have impeded enforcement of consumer protection. Chiroba made the comments a day after the State Law Office blamed Data Commissioner Immaculate Kasait irregularly licensing WorldCoin. He explained that the current legal framework is not up to date and in tandem with the technological dynamics and innovations in the country. Across the borders, and Rwanda has announced major changes in its security forces affecting high-ranking military personnel. A statement by the Rwanda Defense Forces showed President Paul Kagame had approved the retirement of a dozen generals, 83 senior officers and 6 junior officers. Kagame also authorized the retirement of 86 senior non-commissioned officers. At least 678 soldiers were retired after their contracts ended, while 160 others were discharged on medical grounds. This comes a day after a military coup in Gabon overthrew the government and ousted President Ali Bongo. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, it's still busy this morning. Jogo Road going out towards Landis. Landis is now picking up with some traffic as it's touching a little bit on Haile Selassie this morning via Kamkunji. So that's busy. Langata Road also pretty busy. Some of that is going to feed off towards Railo Dingowe. The rest of it then goes towards Uhuru Highway and then into the city, out through Westlands. Look at the Thika Superhighway. There's an absolute mess going on here. From Outer Ring at the junction all the way through towards Survey. You're going to be able to use your service lanes all the way through. But then when you get past Survey, you're going to have to do the trickle of traffic through the city. It's like the walk of shame, but for traffic. And you have to go through that as you get towards Muranga Road or then going towards Wangari Maathai. Wangari Maathai, now that's a different story because it's bumper to bumper all the way into the city. Limuru Road traffic is joining that, and then Parklands Road traffic is also coming in. Everybody's trying to get to one place using one route, and that's what is causing this traffic this morning. Coming off of Waiaki Way as well, we're seeing some traffic touching on Chiromo, so that whole area is a mess, guys. It's Friday morning, and things are getting what? Elephant. Let's talk in a bit and see what happens as we try to open up. Let us know where you are this morning. Talk to us on Spice FM, KE on X.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Ndu, have you changed your map? Why is everything looking so red today?
People are updating.
That's the kind of traffic that we have.
Yes, it's actually bad. No, the traffic today is a different story.
What?
It's crazy. It's crazy. Look at the Thika Superhighway. It's coming in from Outer Ring, that junction. All of that is happening. It's rare to see inbound traffic on Fridays, so this is interesting today. Heavy traffic. Kiambu Road is even heavier. And we're looking at all of that then touching. Look at Wangari Maathai. Look at that. Not quite sure what's happening. And there's Limuru Road as well. So where's everybody going is the question.
So Wangari Maathai all the way to museum.
Yeah, from the junction of Pangani all the way to museum, touching on Chiromo. It's madness this morning. Don't know where everybody's going or what's going on.
Okay. Okay. Anyway, welcome to the third hour of Kenya's biggest conversation. Happy September. That's why everybody's out. Like, August is done.
It's the first of the month.
I'm done with August. You know, August is a bad month in Kenya. Things happen in this country.
Yeah.
Just negative
it was
things
the
happen.
thing, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Negative things happen in this country in the month of August. So, August is gone. We are on to September. Welcome to September. Happy Friday. Thank you very much for joining us on Kenya's biggest conversation. Now, we want to have a conversation about emergency medical services. And when we talk about emergency medical services, very, very many things. You see those ambulances, they're called the Red Cross ambulances, the E+ ambulances on the road. And whenever we have an issue, we see them being among the first responders and the Kenya Red Cross being among the first responders, wherever. Now, imagine emergency happening at home. You have those things, or somebody's choking, somebody has collapsed, somebody has just fallen, you don't know, somebody has broken a wrist, a leg, an arm, a nose, whatever happens, somebody has fallen down the stairs, you know. What happens?
Walked into a wall.
Walked into a wall and they got a
black eye.
Black eye. What happens? Who do you call? How do you actually support this person by the time the first responders arrive? You're actually the first responder. So to have this conversation with us, we are joined by Dr. Christine Memusi. She is the medical director at the Emergency Plus Medical Services. That's E+ Medical Services. Daktari, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you for having me.
That is the red hot seat of the Situation Room. And you're dressed red.
And I'm dressed in red, yes.
Very good. Karibu sana. On behalf of City Muga, I'm going to give you the day's proverb. City always has proverbs from one country for an entire week. He is not in this week for the most part of this week, but he left me the proverbs. They're from South Africa. And today's proverb is, dawn doesn't come twice to wake a person up. Dawn doesn't come twice to wake you up.
That's a good proverb.
What do you think it means?
Dawn doesn't come twice. If I was to apply it to EMS, is that, you can't go back, or you can't have 2 times a chance to save someone's life. So we always have to act as quickly as possible. It only comes once, so you can't keep on repeating, or we have to learn from our mistake. Was it once shy, twice bitten?
Once bitten, twice shy.
Yes, once bitten, twice shy. So dawn doesn't come twice. You can't go back.
You don't have a second chance.
You don't have a second chance. So the first chance you have to actualize it and ensure that you make the best out of it.
Okay. Introduce us to EMS. We see the ambulances, we see the people. We are not sure that we see the company.
Okay, so thank you. As you said, my name is Dr. Christine Mugambi Memusi, Medical Director, Kenya Red Cross. So Emergency Medical Services, or Emergency Plus Medical Services, is a private company fully owned by the Kenya Red Cross. Our mandate is to provide pre-hospital care. And, pre-hospital care is the care that you receive before you reach hospital. It's the care that can make the difference. Before, when you look at where did EMS come from, it came from the necessity to be able to ensure that life is saved, whether it's from hospital, from a scene, whether it's an accident scene, or someone who gets any emergency at home. How does that person reach the hospital quickly? And the care is initiated immediately to be able to revert either early death or comorbidities. So in that sense, EMS makes the difference between life and death. Yes.
We see it in the movies. Someone call 911.
Yeah.
Somebody call. It's not never the person calling. It's somebody
else
issuing instructions. Someone call 911. Okay.
So, what kind of services then does this supply? What needs do they supply? Yes, as we see the ambulance running, and we often think that, somebody's on the way to hospital without ever thinking where they've come from.
Yes.
And what's going on.
So we just know somebody's going to hospital, but we don't assume that somebody could have been picked up from their home. Or maybe sometimes the assumption is that there was an accident somewhere and then the ambulance came and picked up. But here we are saying that it's very possible for these services to come home where an accident or something of a medical nature has taken place. How does this work?
Okay, so we need to understand that many people look at emergencies as road traffic accidents. Whenever you think of an ambulance, you always assume that ambulances are only called when an accident on the road happens. But majority of our emergencies and the nature in terms of when you look at what takes people to hospital the most, or what are the majority of admissions in hospital are medical in nature. And a medical emergency can happen anywhere. A child being fed by a nanny choking, that's an emergency. A nanny burning her hand with hot water while doing her chores in the house, that's an emergency. And the emergency basically is those first aid services that are given to revert that condition and save that life. And so that's what EMS is all about. That care that's given outside a hospital setup to ensure that life is being saved and to ensure that care is initiated to prevent death or to prevent morbidity. Yes.
Who is this caregiver? What training do they have?
Okay, so in EMS, there are 2 types of caregivers. One, when you look at the person who provides the care, can be an emergency medical technician or a paramedic. So an emergency medical technician is basically someone who has upgraded from a first aid. So it's a certificate course that's done for a duration of 9 months. Once they graduate, then they start the EMS career as an entry-level emergency medical care provider. or technician. And as they continue the years of service, they graduate to an advanced emergency medical technician. And as they pursue their studies further, then they go to school to acquire a diploma in paramedic. So a paramedic is an equivalent of a nurse in a hospital, but the setup is pre-hospital. And so paramedic course is a 2.5-year course that's provided. We do provide it at the Kenya Training Institute. And now, when you look at what a paramedic does, then they're able to work in an ambulance that is more equipped, or a level of what we call an ICU ambulance, which is an advanced cardiac life support ambulance. And at the same time, so we have those who provide care to the patient in the patient compartment, but there's also the other cadre of professionals who man that ambulance, those who ensure that the ambulance reaches the scene safely, and at the same time the ambulance is able to reach the hospital safely, and we call them ambulance operators. We do not refer to them as drivers, because the training that they receive is of higher stature. They have defensive driving, they have evoc training, as well as first aid training. So these are people who can actually even assist either the emergency medical technician or the paramedic at the scene to save life.
I see. Yes. And then what is inside this vehicle?
So what is inside a vehicle, if you really asked me that question, is what would make the difference between saving a life or not. Because the equipment inside a vehicle really do matter. And I mentioned equipment and consumables in the patient compartment. And so some of the really important things that every ambulance, and when you look at the standards of ambulances, we should have the patient bed. We should be able to provide oxygen to that patient if they need to receive that oxygen. We should be able to ventilate that patient, meaning that if the level of consciousness was to deteriorate, that we can actually intubate and actually save that life. We should be able to monitor the vitals, whether it's the blood pressure, the heart rate, the temperature, the respiratory rate. And at the same time, we should be able to give life intervention in terms of medications. So there is a scope where we say that these professionals should be able to safely use drugs that can be able to help someone who is having a heart attack, drugs that can be able to help someone who is in shock, drugs that can be able to help someone who is bleeding. And so all this entails what is required. I've talked a lot about what is required in consumables from a medical perspective, but what about a trauma perspective? Someone is involved in a road traffic accident. How are these professionals required to offer life-giving skills with the equipment that is needed? So for in a road traffic accident, someone who has fractures, you should be able to have equipment that can do splinting, that can arrest the bleeding, at the same time can also support the spine. Not only just support the spine, but equally evacuate a patient from a crash scene safely, to ensure that you do not cause any more damage to the spinal cord or to the area of injury. And we've seen a lot of the cases could be preventable. A lot of condemning of road traffic accident patients who are condemned to a wheelchair for life could have been eradicated from how safely they were
evacuated
from the scene. That is very essential.
Doctor, it's interesting that you say this, because again, a lot of what we think is influenced by things that we watch. As we may not want to accept it, but it's true. But here you are telling us essentially that a paramedic or a medical technician at this level is not a wannabe doctor, is not somebody who's aspiring to be a doctor, but an individual who is going to provide critical care in a position where a doctor or whomever is going to handle that trauma thereafter is not available. That without this individual at a crash site, for example, or at the scene of a fire or from a home emergency, without this individual with the necessary skill, the loss of life then could be much higher, or the impediment to health could be much higher. Right? So when this person essentially steps in, you're saying that there is first aid, there's healthcare, there's first point that is given that we often assume may not be necessary, that it's just riding along to the hospital in an ambulance. So how can you now debunk that? If somebody, for example, is taken from an accident scene in the ambulance, what's happening? As they're going from point A to point B, we only see the outside and we hear the alarm and the siren. But what's going on inside there that
as
can
this vehicle
ensure
is
it's
moving?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you for that. By debunking, I need to emphasize that an ambulance is not a siren or it's not about speed. We need to be able to change the notion that whenever you think an ambulance, it's all about speed and it's all about a transport vehicle. An ambulance is beyond a transport vehicle, but an ambulance provides care. And that care in transit or on transit is so essential that makes a difference. So if we are having a trauma patient in that ambulance, the paramedic, the emergency medical technician who is with this patient is monitoring vitals, which are essential. That information is key to the receiving facility to know that there's a patient who has had these vitals all along. As they are taking the patient from point A to B, remember they're also communicating with a dispatch center. And the information they're giving to the dispatch center is being relayed to the receiving facility. So it's a synergy. They don't work alone. And that information helps the receiving facility prepare itself. So they'll know there's a patient in shock who is coming. They will know that this is the current state of this patient. At the same time, they're already starting the intervention. So if it's a shock patient who has a fracture, they've mobilized that area that has a fracture. They have given medication, they're giving fluids. So they've already commenced the management to save that life. And that makes a difference. You know, when you look at, for example, a patient who has had a heart attack, you know, the first aid, if you told me you've done first aid, and when you are shown how to manage a patient who has first aid for someone who has had a heart attack, giving that, for example, high dose of junior aspirin makes a difference. That positioning makes a difference. And that is why it's important for people to understand that ambulance services can save life. There's a lot of research has shown that many people prefer calling an Uber or rushing a patient with any means of transport that is near, and never really think about calling an ambulance first. There's a perception that it could be a vehicle of death. There's a perception that itachelewa. But if you really look at the care that's given, and what's in that ambulance, it's the equivalent of what is in any bed or in any hospital. That's top notch. And so really the importance is to realize that an ambulance can actually save your life.
It's the one that stands between things going very south, like 6 feet under south, and actually keeping somebody alive. Kudos to Kenya Red Cross for starting E+ services. Because since then, now we see more ambulances on the road. Before that, we'd only see, those military ambulances, police ambulances, and several from the major hospitals, the PGHs. Those are the ambulances we used to see. And then the private hospitals would come up with ambulances. Do we have a coordination of the ambulance services in this country? Like, does EMS have a same dispatcher as the ones for KNH, as the ones for Nairobi Hospital, Aga Khan, and the others?
Thank you for that. Currently, no. And when you look at emergency medical services as a country, we could say we're in the implementation stage. A lot needs to be done to ensure that these emergency bodies that entail or work together are one. We have been working a lot in silos. So you'll find that the emergency care providers, as for example, Kenya Red Cross, who we are, work very differently from the fire departments, work very differently from the police department, and also the hospitals. We should be able to be one because all these bodies entail emergency care. When they are one, then we can actually have our unified hotline number. And at the same time, we can be able to also have a unified dispatch center. But as Kenya Red Cross, we do have our dispatch center that we connect together with our ambulance services. It is the center of our operations. They are the they are, to us, our first responders, because when the call comes, when a call reaches our dispatch, they are the ones to give pre-arrival instructions. They're the ones to be able to decipher what type of ambulance should we send to the caller, and how quickly can we send this ambulance to the caller to be able to reach within what WHO entails of response time or ideal response time. So that is how we do our operations. We have a dispatch center, but as a country we need to be able to have one unified. But in our collaborations with the counties that we're working with, and where we provide our services, we have been able to empower them to have their own referral systems, and actually dispatch centers that are able to now collaborate with us on the ground to be able to provide the care, the emergency care service that's needed by the people.
Let me go back a little bit to what you spoke about, because then that just connects us to what could be available. That when somebody has fallen down at home or lost breath or whatever, the first response is actually not an ambulance. The first response is, who's the closest person that can drive us, or can I call a taxi?
Yes.
Without thinking that in an ambulance there is this first port of care that is being delivered before one gets to hospital, right? To the closest health center. So if we also look at other areas, they're all over the place. It's the first thing that you do, that somebody is in that position, somebody is calling 911, and an ambulance is going to show up. Doesn't matter. It's not going to be a cab. It's not going to be somebody driving you. Somebody's going to call that. So then what would be the recommendation for folks to say that if something happens, the first person, the first port should be an ambulance, to make sure that the care then is being delivered? Because also we have heard, unfortunately, that people are transporting others to hospital when something has happened and they've died in the cab or they've died in the vehicle, and we're saying that perhaps there's something that could have been done to save them.
True. So what needs to be done to answer that is, we need to be able to educate as many Kenyans as possible of the importance of first aid. And educating means that we're not just telling them do first aid, but actually ensure that they are getting these life skills. These life skills make a difference. Someone who is fast trained, who has first aid training, can be able to initiate the care before they call an ambulance. The other thing we need to do is to be able to educate as many Kenyans of the importance of ambulance services. We need to be able to market these services. We need to be able to ensure that everyone knows who to call, the hotline number for ambulance provision. And so those two really make a difference, because if you were to, let's say, fall down and someone in the house knows what to do, or you cut your hand and someone is able to knows what to do, like arrest the bleeding, that actually saves life, because you're able to prevent excess loss of blood. Or if it's that burn patient, being able to cool the area of burn, remove the clothing and all, makes a difference. If it's that child who is choking, being able to do that, the back throbs, makes a difference. So we need to educate as many Kenyans. That's one of the mandate of the Red Cross, to ensure that first aid knowledge is achieved and is taught. We have seen Scandinavian countries that have been able to achieve 80-90% of their population with the ability to have those life skills. And I've gone a step further to ensure that the access of AEDs are within points where very populated malls have an AED, or in malls their staff, whether it's a security, are able to provide first aid. And so there needs to be a synergy, if you asked me. A synergy from first responders to the scene. In Kenya, especially when you look at our road traffic accidents, our first responders are usually the boda riders. Are these boda riders trained in first aid? That there needs to be that conversation, and there needs to be that actualization. Number two, in places where Kenyans converge in large numbers, do we have first aid boxes or kits, and we have even AEDs that can be able to defibrillate the heart in case someone collapses and they're actually having a heart attack or the heart arrests. So these are measures that should be able to be achieved. And lastly, the numbers, as we know 911, do we know that our short code for Kenya Red Cross is 1514? Very simple numbers that Kenyans can actually memorize and have in a situation where you have saved that life, but you need an ambulance to be able to, you have already given the first aid to that life, but you need an ambulance to be able to come and now continue with the care and evacuate that patient to hospital. Then the short code 1514 or 0700 395 395 or 0738 395 395. Those are ambulance services numbers. Those are numbers that every Kenyan should have with them.
Well, as we gear up to the national launch of universal health coverage and UHC, we'll be looking at it, starting from that primary health care and also primary emergency response. And these are important. The things that you've said, making sure that we have people who are trained in first aid in every community. Does your community have somebody who's actually trained in first aid? Does your court have? Does your block of apartments have somebody who's trained in first aid? That all of you know, we can call on this person. So we have this whole move towards having community health workers at every community. These are people who would also have this kind of skills. They can also help get other people who are called, first aid or emergency champions in a community. So if a community is well aware of these things and creating such within itself, then it helps. Next thing, know who to call. Is it the number 1514? Just dial 1514 and call. 0700 395 395. I'm plugging E+ numbers here again. And I want to give this because I have lived in a community that was very active on making sure that we have some sort of emergency response. Green Park Estate in Athi River. Registered every household with the emergency E+ services, so that in the event of an emergency, you call a number and they already know that Green Park, we have a community and we have a relationship with them. An ambulance is sent immediately. And it has helped a number of people and a number of times. And this is a good thing. And I think as we take this break, let's digest this. We come back and have this conversation with Dr. Christine Memusi. She is the Medical Director, Emergency Plus Medical Services. We are talking about the status of emergency medical services in Kenya, and we're already seeing the kind of interest this is eliciting. We're going to be running soon. We'll also need ambulance services along the southern bypass as we commemorate 20 years of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. On what day?
On the 29th of October. So maybe to avoid those ambulance services, you could start training today. You could register 2,000 shillings on www.nairobimarathon.com. It's the 20th edition of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. And we're saying, you know what? All proceeds of this goes towards the Future Makers program, where it's helping young people, especially girls, and living with disability to learn, earn, and grow. It's coming up on that Sunday, the 29th of October. Pay 2,000 shillings as you register, and it's getting bigger. It's Kenya's largest single-day athletics event. It's back. It's bigger. It's helping. Do it today.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Some very nice, mature music.
It really took me back to my days, and I can just feel young again and enjoy the vibes.
Spice.
I'm a big listener of Spice FM.
You play the best music.
This is 94.4 Spice FM.
I have a brother. He was a pilot. He was laid off. He came to a policeman. He messed up.
He went from a pilot to a policeman.
Exactly.
He stole a jet.
Yeah.
In fact, you should be lucky he was not court-martialed.
The Spice Tribe. Big hair and the biggest hits from the best decade.
Cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 14, highs of 24. We'll see highs of 26 in Nakuru, where it's sunny at 15. 14 and sunny in Nyeri, lows of just that, and 13 and sunny in Eldoret, going to highs of 24. We'll see highs of 29 in Mombasa and 29 in Malindi as well. 30 will be the high in a sunny Kisumu at 19, and it's 17 and sunny in Kakamega, going to highs of 29. Kampala is sunny at 18, highs of 29, and we'll see highs of 29 as well in a sunny Dar es Salaam at 24. 12 degrees and partly cloudy in Johannesburg, going to highs of 24, and we'll see highs of 30 in a mostly cloudy Lagos at 25. It's 22 and mostly clear in Kinshasa, highs of 32, down to lows of 22.
Spice up your life.
Take a superhighway this morning, coming past Survey, where unfortunately there are no more service lanes, and you're going to have to go that one way, everybody chugging along towards the CBD. It's looking a little bit better on Kiambu Road, so yay for that. Coming off of Limu Road, the Muthaiga way, you'll see some traffic as you get towards Wangari Maathai Way, which, by the way, another yay, has cleared up in like 60 seconds. And it looks much better now as you're trying to approach the CBD or go towards Westlands, Chiromo in that direction. Coming off of Wayaki Way, right around the expressway exits, you'll find that it's looking a little bit better as well. But then there's inbound traffic towards Chiromo and the city. That's happening. Uhuru Highway, very, very busy this morning. Everybody's coming in from Langata Road, from Mombasa Road, from Lusaka, from Bunyala. Everybody's joining Uhuru Highway, getting towards the CBD and then out towards Westlands. All right, let's take a quick look at what's going on the Eastern Bypass. Not much. It looks good right now. Traffic coming in from Kamanas going out towards Outer Ring at the junction. You'll be all right. Let's talk Spice FM KE on X.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
Dr. Christine Memusi, Medical Director, Emergency Plus Medical Services of the Kenya Red Cross, is our guest today. Status of emergency medical services in the country. So you witness an accident somewhere, let's say a road accident, an accident in the estate. A kid was riding a bike, a kid has fallen, a kid has broken or sprained or whatever. Who do you call? How do you respond to this? We see very many times people just come up and they become good Samaritans and become emergency responders, and they just do what they think they ought to be done. Muvute mtoe hapo mweke pale, just handling. Toa viatu, amezimia. Do we have a proper emergency response system in this country? Clearly we don't. We don't even have... Yeah, I know. We don't have a proper disaster response management unit or system in the country. There's been several attempts at getting this, including a bill that just died somewhere. We don't have all these things. And Dr. you've said, what we need to see is basically having the coordination of all these services, and particularly if it just goes down to county level. If a county such as Nairobi would coordinate all its emergency response, we know we have fire department, we've got the police, we've got several hospitals with ambulance services, we've got private ambulance services such as the E+. How do we coordinate all this? How can we have one number where in Nairobi you call and then all this is coordinated? If this were to work, it would make things better. Yes. The other thing is bringing it down to household level. Training and creating awareness on first aid. You say that's part of the mandate of the Kenya Red Cross, is that.
Yes.
But for you to be able to do that in a population of 54 million people, you need a lot. Who would you work with to train us on first aid?
Well, the training of first aid should begin from elementary school. That knowledge should be part and parcel of any education system, if you asked me. And it should be free, because the knowledge you're impacting from an early age makes a difference. For those who are working in institutions and organizations, the Kenya Red Cross is able to work and partner with them where we can come and train the institution as a block. For those in estates, we can equally do the same. But But I would like to target the young because the future belongs to them. And when you look at our numbers, majority of our youth will be the future. And so for me, I would say work with the educational system, with the government, to ensure that first aid is commenced from school. Have first aid clubs. I remember back in my day, we actually had St. John First Aid Club, but I don't know if it's still as active as it was back then. But the skills we started learning from the time I was in class 5, 6 might probably have been the spark for me to actually pursue a medical career. But all in all, this is a necessity. We should be able to say that first aid should be a necessity to all, and first aid should be able to be taught to all, from as a young, an early age to adult. We should be able to have that knowledge and skill to save that life.
Should it be mandatory? Because I imagine what we're saying is that we have come from a place where we've been so community-led and community-oriented. There's been a little bit of a shift. Should we be coming back full circle? Because you can imagine what happens when there's an accident. Everybody coalesces about a certain area. So the aspect of community is still there.
Yes.
Should it be something that is part of your mainstream learning and understanding? It shouldn't be an elective. It shouldn't be extracurricular.
Yeah.
It should be part of the mainstream. The same way we have things like sex education. It should be there as well, because at one point or another, you will run into a situation where somebody does need that first respondent care.
That's very true. I want to echo that. It should be mandatory. And mandatory and fun, It shouldn't, I think sometimes when you look at education and when we look at where we came from, 844, it was very stringent. But this is something that should be made fun and mandatory to all. When you look at communities, it should be all. Whether someone is not educated at all, it should be a skill that everyone should have. Because there's that percentage of Kenyans who have not been able to achieve, for example, or even reach class 8. There's that percentage, and we need these people to be able to have this knowledge and skills. We have our domestic workers, who we leave our precious children with. Are they first aid trained? Can they be able to help your child when you're busy at work trying to make ends meet? So it's a skill that should be achieved and disseminated to all, if you asked me. And mandatory, yes. Just like when you look at how they want, once you reach 18 years, you go to the National Police Service or something. Make it mandatory from elementary school, and for those who are willing to learn, make it accessible and affordable, so that as many Kenyans as possible can have those first aid skills that will make a difference in a scene where there's an accident, whether it's a road traffic accident or an accident at home.
Do you do this training at community level? So people who are listening, and you've mentioned our house helps in many instances. Do you train? Can someone send someone to you for training, or can a community invite you to come and train them?
Yes, we do offer the mandatory. We do offer the training from a community based. Remember, the first aid training can take a maximum of 3 days, based on what the community needs and looking at what are the emergencies that can arise in that community. We do offer. And it is available. We can partner with the communities and be able to provide it, but also partnering with the schools and offering these skills is very feasible and achievable.
It's something that can be done.
It can be done, yes.
And rolled out immediately.
Immediately.
So looking at the regulation of all of this, it does seem right now, obviously we know that disaster management right now is, putting it kindly, a mess, right? So if we're going to talk about trying to get towards regulation, so much so that when there's an accident or there's something that has gone wrong, or I'm in the house and you can actually call 1514 or whatever number that is, that it's regulated in such a way that there's dispatch, and in order for that to happen, the regulatory mechanism has to be in place so that you know who's going where, who's been mapped for what. What would it take to have that in place today? So much so that it is ingrained in people's minds that this system is in place for this particular thing to happen.
So what needs to be done is the government backing and support. because when you look at that, what it means is that we need to have a regulatory body that is able to ensure that EMS is coordinated and the services that are provided by whether ambulance services from hospital or private entities is correct. Regulating what even an ambulance should look like and what an ambulance should have. Regulating the skill sets of these ambulance providers. That is something that should be achieved. A lot has been worked on by the government to actualize this. Laws have been written, bills have been passed. And so where we need to be at is the actualization of these policies that have been inputted and shared, collaborations by Ministry of Health and the private entities that provide emergency medical care in this country. At the same time, we need to be able to have a unified system of EMS where all these disaster components, those who provide disaster care, whether it's the police working together with the EMS providers, working together with hospitals, working together with the fire, all these need to be under one umbrella. So it is achievable. The actualization is work in progress. Whether it's through the Universal Health Fund or Universal Health Cover, working all to ensure that they unify their systems is achievable. When is a big question.
The jury is still out.
Yeah, when
Let's use the example of Kenya Red Cross. How long ago did Kenya Red Cross establish the Emergency Plus Medical Services? Which year?
It started in 2010, and it's actually a very humbling story that started the birth of E-Plus.
Yep.
E-Plus was birthed from a need to evacuate a member who had been involved in a road traffic accident. And at the time, there were no ambulances, or the ambulance provider that was there could not reach the member because it was interior of Kenya, actually, Isiolo. So to be able to reach that life and bring them to Nairobi, where the care could have continued, took days. And so that birthed where E-Plus came from, and the necessity of we need to be able to provide ambulances to Kenyans. If we ourselves cannot access the services, what about the rest? And so from the last 13 years, we have grown from 2 ambulances to 128 state-of-the-art ambulances. And we know that we are still yet to continue because the population is increasing, EMS is ever evolving, and so we are changing with that. But we've been in the market for the last 13 years.
13 years, 138 ambulances. Of course, very many people working in the ambulances, the medical technicians and the paramedics and the ambulance operators. The staff, how many?
We are close to 300 staff.
Okay. And you have a single dispatch
unit, yes.
So this number goes to a central location.
Yes, it does.
And then the operator knows how then to dispatch.
Yes, the dispatcher knows how to dispatch an ambulance.
How to dispatch an ambulance, yes. and the follow-up.
Yes.
So if this has happened in 10 years,
yes,
and we've been within these 10 years, we've also been now talking about, the national EMS system and how it can be done. It's possible to roll it out.
Yes, it is.
So the message that we are sending here to Interior and Health and the others is, look, this thing can be done. And I'm pushing this because we have looked at the national disaster management. So we had a multi-stakeholder platform that was dealing with the disaster management in the country and looking at how they are brought together. It brings in Red Cross, it brings in the police, it brings in the military in some cases. In case of an emergency, these are the ones who respond. But no formalized framework or structure of national disaster management. If we have a disaster, we cobble up a team at that point, right? Is that the same thing that happens up to now?
Yes.
You're part of a multi-stakeholder, blah, blah, this and the other.
Yes.
There have been pushes to have a National Disaster Management Authority bill taken to Parliament and passed. It has died, it has flopped. This is a message basically from the Situation Room to the powers that be that, come on.
We can do better. No, we can do something. Not even better. We can do something.
Surely. Yeah. Because we see emergencies all the time. And when you get to a point where emergency, everybody knows Red Cross will come up, and yet we have a government in place. Shouldn't be the case. but kudos to the work that you're doing. Now, if somebody calls 1514 in the event of an emergency,
yes,
who pays for this service?
It's a free service. It's the 1514 will not be charged, and so when you call, the call will go to a dispatch center, and the dispatch center is manned by emergency medical dispatchers who are medics, and they're able to really understand you as a caller, one, your demographics, your location, and what is the nature of emergency. The moment we're able to understand that, then we're able to look at where ambulances are. Remember, we have ambulances in every county of our lovely nation. And so we're able to look at the nearest ambulance to you using our GPS systems that we have put in place to be able to now look and see the nearest ambulance and dispatch that ambulance to you, giving them the information that you have given us.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we're able to now, the dispatchers are able to give you, the caller, medical advice or what you can be doing, those first aid advice at what you can be doing before the ambulance reaches you.
Right.
Yes.
When it comes, do I pay?
Well, when it comes based on as we get your details, remember, if you have a national health insurance fund, we have collaborated with the NHIF to be able to provide NHIF members ambulance services during an emergency. So what we do as E-Plus is that we have different packages of how to be able to receive our services. So you can either be a member of E-Plus from either an individual level or from a family level, family entailing 6 members. At the same time, you can be a member based from corporate, like now we could come and partner with Standard Group and be able to provide emergency services for all Standard Group members. We do the same thing for blocks, like you said, in terms of like estates or communities that live together. We are able to provide them that emergency services. We do also partner with schools, where we do provide emergency services to schools. All this based on the caller. If you're a member, you'll give us your member number, and we're able to come and provide that ambulance service. The good thing about membership is that it is not limited. Once you become an Emergency Plus Medical member, then what happens is you have unlimited access to ambulance services for any emergency. Unlimited times, I need to emphasize the word for unlimited. Most covers with some of our other ambulance providers in this country, they give you 5 or 10 evacuations in a year. For us, it's unlimited. And that is something that we take pride of. But as much as we might want to look, as much as we are private, remember we also have we have a corporate social responsibility, and it's something that we're very proud of. And in our corporate social responsibility, it means then that any accident that happens on the major highways and you're the first on scene, please call us, because it is our mandate to evacuate those accidents to hospital. We took this up because when you look at what happens at road at an accident scene, many times that crowd is taking photos or they're trying to their own way, in their community way, to try and save that life. Many times with the lack of skill, they do more harm than good. So that's where we come in, and in our as a corporate and as a responsibility to the society, we offer those evacuations for free. So as long as you're a member, the least fee that we do offer for membership is 3,000
per year.
Per year.
Okay.
And as long as you're a member, remember 3,000 in comparison to calling at an ambulance or using taxi services. And when you really look at what you're getting for that 3,000 is a lot. And so as long as you're a member, we'll always evacuate you. But I also need to emphasize that we also do have packages where we do offer ambulance services for our elderly, our elderly parents who have are retired and are sickly. Instead of worrying about them, you can actually make a difference in their lives by just paying 2,500 a year for your mom or dad to be able to receive ambulance services. And so in that, we're able to pick them and take them for their medical checkups, for whether they're on dialysis, as many times as need be.
Do you take patients who've been in a situation, whatever that may be, to the nearest medical facility or to their preferred medical facility, taking into consideration there's an emergency or somebody who's taking normal care from a particular facility would prefer that they be taken there? How does that operate?
So for our transfers, whether it's a hospital transfer or we're picking a patient from home, for members, we give them the chance to choose which is their preferred hospital. For example, if I'm picking you from home and your doctor is in Nairobi hospital, we will take you to where your doctor is. But at the same time, we need to I need to make it clear that if we pick you and maybe the nearest hospital is a health center, and we know that that health center will do more harm than good, what we will do, we'll take you to where that continuity of care will be received.
Based on the care you need.
Based on the care you need.
Okay.
For the receiving facility.
Yes.
So long as an ambulance has brought a patient, they will receive the patient and continue with care, or must there be some kind of coordination of pre-arranged that we know that ambulance from X we will receive, or will any ambulance that comes, so long as it's bearing a patient who needs care, they will receive? What's usually the arrangement between that?
So what's usually the arrangement is we need to notify the receiving facility that we are coming.
Okay.
And so that's the synergy and the seamless processes that entail EMS. So as the ambulance is with this patient and taking this patient to hospital A, the dispatch is ready notifying hospital A that ambulance X is coming, carrying this patient with this condition, and they will be there in the next 10-15 minutes. So that information is key. So that hospital is able to ensure that it is prepared to receive that patient.
Do they ever say, no, we can't accept?
They shouldn't, actually, according to the
according
bill.
to the law.
According to the law,
they shouldn't.
They shouldn't.
Okay, because it's an emergency.
It's an emergency.
Okay.
And so there'll be no conversation about, okay, so you ambulance operators, you've brought this person, we need a bit of a deposit, 5,000.
No,
it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be.
Okay.
And that is what we are hoping is fully actualized in the sense that we have a health fund. Yes.
People who are listening and they'd like to register with Red Cross, how do they do that?
So if you would want to register with us, even if you call the 1514 short code, once it's received our dispatchers are trained to be able to market. Remember, we're all marketers in our own accord to market the services that we provide. And so once you call us, then we're able to now give you the processes of how to register. And how to actually become a member. And so based on the information we'll need to gather from you, are we giving you family cover, are we giving you individual cover, and if it's family, how many members? Once we get the details, because we will be able to send you a form, whether it's on email or your WhatsApp number, then once you fill in the details, we're able then to give you cards and register you and give you a number that actually now you become an E+ member.
Okay.
Yes.
Takeouts from this conversation this morning. Number one, it's important to have first aid training across the country. Let's start it at schools. So let's champion for schools to actually adopt this and make it a mandatory thing. Okay. And then let's have first aid training at community level. Wherever you live, do you know that you have first aid champions? If you live within a certain neighborhood, you have a Nyumba Kumi, yes. You have an estate, yes. Do you have an estate first aid champion or 2 or 3? And Red Cross can also come and train you for that. Number 3, if you can, please register. No, please make sure that you try and can register for emergency rescue services. Red Cross numbers, I'm going to plug you here because you've done a good job of telling us what you've been doing. Call 1514 in the case of an emergency and you need an ambulance. 1514 1514 or 0700 395 395 or 0738 395 395. See, like that.
Just like that.
Very good. Thank you very much, Dr. Harry, for joining us today.
Thank you.
And you need to come again because a lot needs to be said about emergency response and even about first aid. Next time you come, we'll break it down into, okay, so you're in a household and this happens, what do you do? Okay? Because we need to start having those conversations. Dr. Christine Memusi is the medical director, the Emergency Plus Medical Services of the Kenya Red Cross. It's called E+. You've seen those ambulances across the country. Our first Health Friday conversation for this morning was about the status of emergency medical services in the country, and that's what she's been here to do. We continue with our Health Friday conversation in the next hour. Keep it here for that. Good morning. It's 9 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. After the direct triple threat from President William Ruto, business tycoon Jaswant Rai has thrown in the towel in the battle for the control of the insolvent Mumias Sugar Company. Rai and his West Sugar Company have now withdrawn 4 cases related to the running of the sugar factory in notices filed before the Court of Appeal and the High Court. The Rai Group chairperson, who was kidnapped last week in mysterious circumstances before being released 2 days later by his abductors, through 3 notices of withdrawal filed at the Appellate Court and one at the High Court dated August 30th, said he has discontinued and withdrawn the claims. A new initiative aimed at cultivating a savings and investment culture among the Kenyan youth, dubbed Plug Mtaani Vijana to Invest, has officially been launched. The program, which has been christened Kenya's very own version of the hugely successful American business reality TV series Shark Tank, seeks to unlock the potential of entrepreneurship amongst the younger generation. It will involve business development and management training, incorporating soft skills, and targets youth aged between 18 to 35 years, drawn from various sub-counties across all the 47 counties. And Kenya Electricity Generating Company KenGen and Konza Technopolis Development Authority have broken ground for KenGen's Green Energy Park in Olkaria, Naivasha. The Green Energy Park, spanning 342 hectares, is set to accommodate a blend of industrial and non-industrial activities in a move aimed at spurring industrialization in the region while providing a sustainable and clean source of geothermal energy. The development encompasses offices, data centers, research and development centers, hospitality spaces, a visitor experience center, and administrative and commercial facilities. Now, there was drama at an event in Kiambu County as Gatundu South Member of Parliament Gabriel Kagombe engaged in a physical altercation with a contingent of police officers. In the incident captured in a now viral video, the MP engaged in a bitter brawl with the officers after they allegedly switched off his microphone as he addressed residents. Trouble reportedly started after the MP Get Crushed a bursary issuance event organized by Kiambu Governor Kimani Wamatangi and went ahead to address the residents. The governor was yet to arrive at the forum. However, a group of police officers in uniform stormed the event while the lawmaker was addressing his constituents and switched off the microphone, thereafter ordering Kagombe to put to a stop his speech. And police have arrested a 54-year-old suspected criminal believed to be behind a string of violent robberies in parts of Kiambu and Murang'a counties. Simon Gitonga, also known as the Axeman, was apprehended by detectives from the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, Crime Research and Intelligence Bureau unit, who was supported by police officers from Imenti North and Murang'a County. Gitonga, who was found in possession of a well-sharpened machete, will remain in police custody pending legal action. On a sad note, and a boda rider was killed in cold blood and robbed off his motorcycle in a robbery incident in Loresho area, Nairobi. The body of Peter Newton, 36-year-old, was found in a coffee plantation near Lions Eye Hospital with deep cuts in the head. Police said blood was oozing from his head when the body was discovered after he had been murdered by unknown people. And police in Nairobi have arrested 2 people and confiscated about 2 kilograms of suspected cocaine during the ongoing operation targeting drug traffickers in the country. According to a statement issued by the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, the pair, a Nigerian national identified as Michael Adeyemi Adeji and a Kenyan Selina Ndindan Ndonyo, were arrested at Umoja in Okoh. The DCI says a multi-agency team of anti-narcotic sleuths who are acting on a tip-off from the public raided the premises where they found the drugs packed in 4 African-made handbags. And the African Union has suspended Gabon after military takeover of power Wednesday. The union demands restoration of President Ali Bongo and constitutional order. A military coup thrust the Central African nation of Gabon into turmoil Wednesday, unseating the president whose family has held power for more than half a century, just minutes after he was named the winner of a contested election. Ousted President Ali Bongo Ondimba, also known as Ali Bongo, has faced accusations of election fraud and corruption since he began ruling the oil-rich but poverty-stricken nation nearly 14 years ago. Following the coup, residents in the country's capital were seen celebrating and embracing soldiers on the streets. This, as Gabon's main opposition is urging military leaders who have overthrown President Ali Bongo to conclude the vote count from elections last weekend and acknowledge their candidate has won the disputed poll. The All-Tolerance 2023 coalition also said it was inviting the security forces to take part in discussions in order to work out the situation with a patriotic and responsible framework. I'm Dennis Asero. Good morning.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Just a minute. All right, so we're looking at traffic. Different parts of the city this morning coming to the close of traffic hour. Thika Road was doing the thing, and that's much better now. We're just looking at that. We're looking at that hook right there, survey coming out towards the city. That's heavy, and we'll get towards Muranga Road and should be fine. Uhuru Highway has pockets of traffic at your junctions, Bunyala, Haile Selassie, going towards Anniversary Towers, Museum, all of that. As you're going towards Westlands inbound as well, it's doing the thing. Other parts of the city seem to have settled down more or less by now. Let's see what happens at the end of traffic hour in about half hour or so. Talk to us before then on Spice FM KE on X.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
7 minutes after 9. Good morning. Welcome to the final hour of the Situation Room on this last day of the week and first day of the month. 2023 is coming to an end very soon.
You've just decided.
Oh my goodness. We're in September.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to draft my New Year resolution.
Okay, you're one of those.
What's
What are you
the
doing
point?
this New Year?
This New Year, I'm still trying to draft the New Year resolution. This New Year, I'll be waking up earlier.
Earlier than you normally do. Check.
No sooner than
had you decided it's September.
we shall. Yesterday was the 31st of August, and apparently every year for the past 2 decades, the world has been marking African Traditional Medicine Day. Did you know that, Ndu?
That there was African Traditional Medicine, or that there was an African Traditional Medicine Day? I didn't know there was a day.
Yeah?
I did not know there was a day.
And why do we call it African Traditional Medicine?
Because we Africans traditionally created the medicine.
Is there any part of the world that they don't have their own traditional medicine?
As for why should they not call it European traditional
Why
medicine?
African? Why not call it community?
Okay.
Sisi wa Masai tuko na dawa. Tunajua dawa
ya kuosha tumbo.
Tuko na dawa ya kuosha tumbo. Hilo unataka. So those are the ones. To honor the integral role of the traditional medicine in the health and welfare of generations of the people. Okay. So for that reason, we want to have a traditional medicine conversation to close out this Health Friday conversations. We are joined by Harriet Chebet Ngok. She is the CEO and founder of
Harriet's Botanicals.
Can you imagine how creative that is, right?
I love it, yeah.
This botanicals company, Harriet's Botanicals. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you so much.
Karibu sana. That's a hot seat in the Situation Room.
Thank you.
I see you've come with many chupas.
Yes, I have.
Ero unauza dawa?
Si hata siuzi, nimekuletea tu ujaribu wewe mwenyewe.
Iko dawa ya tumbo na dawa ya...
Sasa zote ziko, even though we call them something different.
Okay.
I know the Maasai say dawa ya kuosha damu, dawa ya kuosha tumbo. So us, what we've done is we've formalized this whole thing. And now we'll say reproductive and digestive health for women. You know, dawa ya kuosha uterus. Those kind of things.
Where? Dawa ya kuosha uterus?
Yes. Well,
okay.
You know,
we'll talk about it. Let me first of all give you the day's African proverb. African traditional proverb. This proverb is from South Africa. And the proverb for today is, dawn doesn't come twice to wake a person up. Dawn doesn't come twice to wake a person up. What's your interpretation of this, Harriet?
Make hay while the sun shines.
All right. Straight up, huh?
Yes.
That's what they meant.
Absolutely.
It comes once, go with it.
Absolutely.
Safi. When the gun goes off, go. Don't let it Saturday.
Has it gone?
Sijafanya on your marks. Go. All right. Introduce us to Harriet Botanicals.
So Harriet's Botanicals is a company that retails traditional indigenous medicine for the African urban and diaspora market. So we source our feedstock. When I say feedstock, I mean we source our bark, our roots, our leaves or our trees or our plants, bushes from the Southern Rift Valley. We work with the Maasai, the Ogiek, and the Kipsigis community. The Kipsigis are traditionally known to have like an ancient secret for reproductive health, specifically fertility. So Kipsigis means to give birth. So this is like their thing. And the Maasai have it as well. And now we have 14 shops in Kenya. In Nairobi, we're in Sarit Center, we're in Business Bay Square Mall, we're in Waterfront in Karen, and the CBD, which is actually our busiest shop. Then, of course, we're in Nakuru, Kericho, Kisumu, Mombasa, Eldoret. So what we have really tried to do is just make sure that you can get your product wherever you are. So Eldoret, for instance, will even serve Lodwar. And places like Kisumu, for instance, will also serve Busia. And we also sell in Uganda, we sell in Namibia, we sell in Senegal, we sell in Ghana, we sell in Nigeria, we sell in South Africa. We have a big following in the US and also in Australia, strangely enough. In Europe, we sell mostly in the UK and in Germany.
Okay.
Big operation.
Yes.
All these roots, herbs, barks, and everything sourced from...
Natural, 100% indigenous medicine.
Why do you call it medicine?
So it is medicine in the sense that traditional medicine has always been put as the alternative. So what happened a long time ago when the colonialists were here, we had something called the Witchcraft Act of 1959, where traditional healers were pushed into the realm of sort of like wachawi, witches. And they were marginalized. And at some point, I think the preference was that you go for the Western allopathic medication. So as it is coming back, this is always underground. 80% of Kenyans use traditional medicine, and this is actually documented. Not only Kenyans, but in Africa, traditional medicine is the first point of care for many people. So it's been called this. I believe it is medicine because it has medicinal properties. It is antiviral, anti-inflammatory. It's antibacterial. It has all these properties and things that it does, especially our main product called arrowroot, which has 8 trees in it. So when you actually go and do the research, when you find out the trees in English, these are being used as medicines in allopathic medicine.
So they're what constitute the things that we take.
Absolutely, the bioactive components.
Does the law in Kenya recognize this traditional medicine?
Yes, it does, and it sits under the Ministry of Culture. So it doesn't sit under the Ministry of Health. We are pushing for it to also sit under the Ministry of Health. So I think the way that the government chose to regulate this was under culture, because a lot of it is undocumented, a lot of it is not really standardized, not formalized. There's 22,000 traditional medicine practitioners who are registered. I am one of them. I had to actually go through the process, take my products to University of Nairobi Pharmacology and Pharmacognosy Department, have them tested, get a letter, take it back to the Ministry of Culture, and I am a cultural herbalist, which is a certificate I renew every single year.
Okay.
This was the process I had to go through for me to advertise widely on social media. Before that, you can sell to friends and to family, but you cannot advertise.
You can only sell it chini ya maji.
Exactly.
Does the Pharmacy and Poisons Board recognize you?
So the Pharmacy and Poisons Board have a section for traditional medicine that they are actually developing, and they call them supplements. So there's a process that you need to go through before you become certified under them, and they would prefer actually that you stay aside and be alternative as they deal with what they consider the real pharmaceuticals, mainstream. And we are in a process of also asking for the government to mainstream traditional medicine, to put out like the regulations and say, these are the 10 things that you need to do. And it is expensive. As an example, within Pharmacy and Poisons Board, to take any of these products through clinical research, you're looking at something like a minimum of $100 million. So because a lot of practitioners cannot afford that, they then stay marginalized or on the side. But the government does allow you to practice within those constraints.
But they know essentially, like let's take the Poisons Board, right, for example.
Yes.
They know who you are, what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And that because of that, they're going to say, well, okay, well, we've seen that Harriet, for example, has come to us and we've been able to look at her product and we don't have any qualms with her then having people ingest.
Absolutely.
We're not going to put out an advisory tomorrow that says, well, if you see a bottle of this from Harriet, that you might want to be careful and not.
Absolutely.
Because you've gone through the process.
Absolutely.
All right.
No, what I'm hearing is something different. No, they haven't subjected you to any process.
They haven't.
The Pharmacy and Poisons Board.
Yes.
So basically they are blind to your existence
legally. They acknowledge our existence legally. They just say we don't fall under Pharmacy and Poisons Board.
So tomorrow they could wake up and say, if people started complaining about one of your products, Pharmacy and Poisons Board can actually wash their hands off you.
Well, yes, so they can choose to come and take our products and test them.
Okay.
As well. And they can then have to go and talk to University of Nairobi Pharmacology and Pharmacognosy. They have to talk to the Ministry of Culture. They have to talk to all the different bodies that regulate us. And then they have to agree that this product is not fit for use and take it off the shelf. Absolutely.
Why did you go this way, traditional medicine? Because you talk about one product, for example, having the bark leaves and all of this of 8 different trees.
Yes.
For example, why did you choose to go traditional? Why does anybody choose to go traditional?
So we are the last point of call, actually. A lot of our customers have been to gynas. They've had surgery, multiple surgeries. They've been on painkillers. They've even gone to mitishamba all over the place. We are like the people they come to last. Even with failed IVF, people say, okay, I've had 4 rounds of IVF. I am done. I'm just going to try this. Others simply cannot afford even to see a gynecologist. They're deep in shags or deep in the bundus, and they say, well, 1,500, I can afford that. I can't afford an ultrasound of 3,000, but for 1,500, I will save 500 bob for 3 months and I'll get this product. So for myself, I mean, my story is kind of well known. I've been speaking to the press for a while. I was an investment banker in London, actually, working for Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan. I am trained as a legal and finance investment consultant. And what happened is I had a condition called endometriosis. So endometriosis is a condition where you bleed into your organs as opposed to bleeding out. So when you're on your period, it's extremely painful. It also causes primary and secondary infertility because your womb is crowded with these endo things that you actually cannot carry to term, or you cannot conceive. The sperm cannot get to the egg.
Okay.
So for me, I was diagnosed for like 17 years. I struggled and struggled and struggled. I've been on painkillers. And I was living in England, and I was working for a good bank. So I had all the healthcare available. I could go to any hospital. You know, my employer would pay. But I just struggled and struggled. And usually for 1 week in that month, my life was simply horrific. And this had been going on from when I was 16. So what happened is during my father's funeral in 2017, I had my period that day. So the funeral was late because I couldn't come out of the room. I couldn't come out of the house.
Wow.
So when I finally came out, I was walking in such a way, it was pretty obvious something was off. And this lady approached me and said, "Oh, you know, we have understood your problem. Kesho tunakuletea dawa." That is how this thing happened, right? She didn't ask me a single question.
She looked at you and was
she just looked, "Kesho tunakuletea dawa." So I was like bemused, no problem. The next day now she came with my auntie and brought this concoction of like herbs, you know, like bark. Show me chemsha, kunywa like this, and give us some feedback. And I'm telling you, for the first time in my life, I experienced a painless period. No pain.
Harriet,
Yeah.
what was your first reaction when they came with these things?
When you saw the herbs?
I've tried everything. So I was like amused. I was more like, oh, yeah, of course. Let's try this. Yes, because I've tried everything. I've been on all the painkillers over the counter and the other ones that are prescribed. You know, there are painkillers where there are women who, on the first day of their period, they are carried out of home, taken to a hospital, given a shot.
So
and that is the only way they can function. So I was one of those women. So really, there's nothing I hadn't tried. Prior to that, somebody had brought me medicine from Marakwet. We had another one. We used to call it Webuye because it came from that part of the world. Somebody from Kakamega Forest had brought me medicine. I tried all these things in the house casually, right? In England, I tried Ayurveda. I tried essential oils. I tried flower essences. I tried acupuncture. I tried Reiki. So I already had I have a very broad knowledge of anything to do with period pain. I'm on it. If you tell me do castor oil packs, I know exactly what you're talking about. If you tell me do, the yoni steam, I'm on it. I know it. So for me, this was really shocking. So I came back because I thought I want to keep experiencing this painless period. What is this about? Right? And so I came back, I took some, and then I met my friend, my best friend actually, and she was on her way to a hysterectomy because she had been bleeding for 21 days, like bleeding like Uji. And she said, I'm so fed up of this thing. And her sister, both of them had hysterectomies. So she said, next week the doctor has said he's taking this thing out. He's just going to take it out. I don't care anymore. I told her, very casually, I said, just try this thing and see. And that was it. That was how my business started, because she told everybody in the WhatsApp group, and I'm telling you, I started selling dawa, wow. And that particular month, I made 100,000. Just that 1 month from my WhatsApp group. And I was like, oh, okay, something's going on here.
And your source was this woman?
Okay. Yes, my source was just the same kind of like go and just get this group of herbs together. Then the demand, my goodness. At that time, I was still doing my work, finance consulting. I was like, this is just like a hobby.
Yeah.
This is something people pass by to pick up. And then the demand got so big, we started now going to buy more, changing the formulation, because what happens is you can't just take somebody's formulation and make it yours. You have to improve on it. So then you can say, this is my formulation. So we started doing that and started saying, what else do we need to do? And in that same group, the lady said to me, how can you give me medicine, but don't give my husband? How do you know it's me? There must be medicine for men. And that is how my second product was born.
So, how did you know that it was this particular concoction that then was going to work? And how did you know that it was this combination that was then delivering this result? It's not under a microscope. It's not people doing Hamzat suits and checking whatever is going on, hazmat suits and checking whatever is going on. It's that somebody gave you a concoction, it worked for you. And so now you take this concoction and then you now say, let's, mass produce it and sell it to others. How do you know?
I didn't know. I mean, every single day I get testimonials and I get surprised. I'm still surprised. Like, what? It did that? I didn't know. I was just giving it, you try. But people just kept, it worked for me for this. I had an ovarian cyst, it has shrunk. You know what? I've had, there was a lady who'd had 5 miscarriages over 5 years. And the last child she had was an arrowroot baby. She got her son. These are people telling me things. I didn't even know it would treat that. I didn't know there was anything called blocked fallopian tubes. I learned from my clients. I didn't know. I just knew period pain,
right,
and fibroids. I didn't know something called polycystic ovarian syndrome. I learned about this through my own clients.
Have any doctors, because for women who suffer endometriosis, for those who suffer PCOS, painful periods and all of this, there's a doctor on call all the time.
Yeah.
Have any doctors spoken to you and asked you, okay, so what's this? Because I had a patient who was seeing me every month because of 1, 2, 3, and now she's taking this thing and doesn't anymore.
Yes.
Have they had conversations with you?
Actually, there's even one doctor who, I'll give you the background. So I work with a doctor called Dr. Malindi Ali, and he's at Nairobi Hospital. And it was very strange because my auntie visited him, age 55. And she was at our house and she took Arorwet and her period came back. So she went to the doctor and he said, what have you done? What did you take? And he said, I took this product called Arorwet. And then the doctor, he said, I want to meet that lady. I want to meet the person who gave this thing to you. And that is how my relationship with that particular doctor started. He's given us all his research. He gives Arorwet to all his patients who are struggling with this. Actually, how he uses Arorwet is that he uses it to soften and shrink the fibroids so that you do laparoscopic as opposed to open cut surgery. So after that, we have another doctor in Aga Khan. We have a doctor using the same thing in the hospital in Eldoret, the big one.
Moi teaching.
Moi teaching and referral. We have a doctor at Kenyatta Hospital because I have another friend also who had 30 fibroids. And she was on her way to surgery anyway, so she picked up my product. And then she came back and said to me, the doctor said, what did you do? How come you don't have pain anymore? And she said, I took Arorwet by Harriet. And the doctor said, we know that woman. She's taken all our clients. We know her. So those are the kind of conversations that are going on. So I'm saying to all these doctors, give me your research. I have like Dr. Ali's research. I have like 30 patients, anonymous, that he'll tell me this patient came with this. I gave them letrozole and I gave them your product. I also gave them Fertilion and letrozole and your product. Okay, this one took 6. This one. So that's actually how we are progressing. And now we work with Healthy You. What happened is people started going to Healthy You and demanding our product. So Healthy You are now stocking us. And that is in Nyanyuki, in Rongai, in Thika Road Mall, Garden City Mall, in Junction, in one more Yaya Center, and also TRM, and in the Westgate, and 2 Rivers. And they've asked to stock us in Nakuru, Eldoret, and Kisumu.
In other parts.
Yes, and what I've said is, I don't want you to compete with my shop. You will shut me down, surely.
But then, I want to go back into this particular day, on this unfortunate day of your father's funeral.
Yes.
When this woman came and told you, tomorrow, nakuletea dawa.
Yeah.
The following day, she came with this dawa.
Yes.
Before she came, you've said you had tried. You'd been given webuye.
Exactly.
You'd been given this other one from Marakwet.
Yes.
You'd been given others.
Yeah.
So what is it that did not work with the webuye one, which I'm sure has worked with other people?
So
the Marakwet one, I'm sure there are people who would say the Marakwet one has worked for them, but didn't work for you, and this one worked.
Yes. It's all about the formulation. It's all about the formulation, because you can be given, let's say, 10 trees, but depending on how much of, what percentage of which particular tree is in it. So maybe there's one that is, the Marakwet one, for instance, most of these medications within the Kalenjin are given for fertility. So they don't really encounter women. They don't even know the name of endometriosis. There is no such thing as endometriosis in the local language. They are not treating pain. They are treating infertility. And there's medicines. People will tell you things like, nilichukua yo dawa, ya Marakwet, I vomited for 3 days. They're just saying, anaosha tumbo. That's why that is a very common term that you'll hear even with the Maasai. So those medicines are working. Maybe those people just don't have access to research. They don't have access to a certain type of education, because I sent my herbs abroad. I sent them to London. I sent them to the US, to friends who work in the pharmaceutical industry, and tell them, tell me the properties of this. Tell me what this is. How does it work? And then I will now simulate that information and create a formula that I think works. So I will increase the herb that I think, this is it. This is the one for fertility. This is the one for pain. Like there's a very famous herb called Carissa edulis. Everyone knows it. It's the Lonliondo herb. Now that's a natural painkiller. And it's grown everywhere. We call it legetetiet. The Maasais grow it. It's grown in Mount Kenya. It is grown in the coast. So that's a very well-known one. If you Google right now, you will find it. And that's free information on the internet. So that's an example of, for me, I'm treating pain, I will increase the painkiller element.
How do you know the threshold? Treat to what extent? Increase by how much? How do
So
you know
in my formulation, I will say that the painkiller must be 30%. I am primarily treating pain. I'm not even interested in anything else. First, I want to bring my patient to zero pain, right? I am treating over bleeding. Like if you're bleeding for 21 days, you're bleeding for 3 months straight, you're really in trouble, even in terms of your own other emotional, mental, and physical well-being. So for me, I'm saying, what is causing the bleeding? The bleeding is normally low progesterone, right? So we need to balance the hormones out. A lot of my patients have high estrogen. So then we will go and look at what are the causes of increased estrogen. Why do we have so many people with high estrogen, low progesterone? That's hormonal imbalance and mainly caused by dietary and environmental factors. So then I'll say to my patients, you need to find a way to reduce your estrogen. We need to evacuate estrogen through the liver, through the gut. A lot of people who have estrogen dominance also have gut issues. They don't have a bowel movement daily. They might have a bowel movement once a week. So the week when they're supposed to be evacuating estrogen, they're all bloated. So arrowroot itself, the particular tree is for digestive health, right? So in that, I'll know we must help this person go to the toilet. We must help them remove all this urine and gas. We must purify, do like a detox, remove all the things in the body that causes pain when it's time to release, right? We must find out why this person is bleeding. What can we do? And it's been trial and error. But if we are serving something like 3,000 to 4,000 patients every single month, and we have a CRX, so we have a customer database that when a patient, anybody who walks in, we know this person is on bottle number 6. This is what they have. They have large fibroids. They were recommended surgery. They don't want to go for surgery, or they've had surgery and the fibroids regrew. So we are creating this data, and then we go now to the doctors and say, tell us a little bit more. Can we collaborate on the research? What do we do in this instance? And anyway, we also tell our patients, use our product, but go to your doctor. We want you to use all the healthcare facilities available to you. If you need surgery, go for surgery. We're very friendly with the allopathic practitioners. And I believe that's how it's supposed to be, really. You do your ultrasound, you have your gyna. When you say, okay, your gyna, I'm not so happy with this, I'm going to go to Harriet's Botanicals for this and the gyna for this. You also take painkillers. If the pain is excruciating, you support with painkillers until you get to a point where there is no more pain or you're very comfortable. So we're a wellness company more than anything else, and we want these solutions to work for women, whether allopathic or traditional.
I want to know whether there is any sort of consultation or conversation with the medicine dispatcher before you sell. Right? When someone walks into any of your shops across the country, or even in Australia, do they first have a conversation so that this person understands what the problem is before they say, all right, you take arrowroot 2 times a day or 3 times a day?
Yes.
Or is it just those ones off the counter?
Kunywa dawa.
Nataka nini? Take it. Shika hii. Wewe ni mwanaume. Shika hii.
Okay, so
Harriet Chebet Ngok, we are taking a break.
Okay.
29 minutes to 10. Harriet is the CEO and founder of Harriet's Botanicals. She is here to talk about reproductive and digestive healthcare for men and women using the traditional medicine. We're having a conversation about this. Of course, you have to ask those questions. What's the difference between you and Babu Aloliondo? I mean,
absolutely.
What's the difference between you and the preachers who are out in the street and we just don't know what they're telling us about?
Absolutely.
But they make us believe that we're going to heaven, and then they tell us for us to go to heaven, we have to starve ourselves. Let's continue the conversation shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
On your marks, get set.
Kenya's largest single-day athletics event is back again this year, and it is bigger. Get ready for the 20th edition of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. Join us at the Uhuru Gardens on Sunday, 29th October, as we celebrate 20 years running. Register today for 2,000 shillings only at www.nairobimarathon.com. All proceeds go towards our Future Makers program, which helps young people, especially girls and people living with disability, to learn, earn, and grow.
Oh, finally! It's my Standard Courier delivery.
At Standard Courier, we know that your time is valuable. That's why we guarantee swift and efficient deliveries to your doorstep every time. Give us a call on 0793 599 684 or schedule your next delivery by visiting our website www.standardcourier.com. www.standardmedia.co.ke/courier. Trust Standard Courier Service for all your courier needs.
Cloudy conditions in Nairobi, 14, highs of 24. We'll see lows of 14. 13 will be the low in a mostly sunny Nakuru, going to highs of 26. Highs of 24 in Nyeri and highs of 24 in Eldoret. It's 23 and sunny in Mombasa. We'll see highs of 29 and we'll see highs of 29 in Malindi. 30 will be the high in Kisumu, where it's sunny, and it's sunny at 17 in Kakamega. Kampala is sunny at 18 with highs of 29, and we'll see highs of 29 as well in Dar es Salaam. 12 degrees and partly cloudy in Johannesburg, and we'll see cloudy conditions at 25 in Lagos, 22 and clear in Kinshasa. Looking out into Beijing, Friday afternoon is cloudy at 29, and it's 17 and cloudy in Paris, and heavy rain in London at 15. 20 degrees and clear Thursday night, coming into Friday in New York, highs of 24 and lows of 15.
Spice up your life.
We're out of traffic hour now, according to the clock. Just a little bit left on the Thika Superhighway, where we're looking at that junction between Pangani and Muthaiga Square. It's going to carry on for some time from what we see. We're also looking at smooth Uhuru Highway until you get to the Haile Selassie Junction. That's going to slow down just a tad. We'll keep an eye on things as we go through the day. Talk to us on Spice FM KE on X.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Traditional medicine, digestive health for men and women. Harriet from Harriet Botanicals is our guest, and she's here with many of these things. Arorwet, Tenduit, Sagawaita,
Musipchot.
So I asked you, how do we know that yours work and Babu or Loliondo's don't work, or yours work and my brother Ole Sankox doesn't work?
So Ole Sankox probably works if he had the correct dosage and the consistency. I want to believe that what's happening in the villages is working, because there are many people who are still using these products. There are many Maasai who don't even have to come to Harriet's Botanicals, and they don't walk into pharmacies. And the same with parts of the country like the Turkana, like the Gabra, the Borana, parts of Malindi where there's a lot of remote, you don't have access to a health facility. And this is why I say 80% of Africans use traditional medicine, and the government knows this. It understands that this is like a support mechanism for the other healthcare system. Now, for me, you spoke about the fact that when people come to us, right, do we perform a consultation? We do perform a consultation, and it is for free. The only thing that we are selling is the dawa. So every shop is stocked with 2 to 3 people, for instance. In addition to that, there's somebody online on Instagram, on Facebook, and on WhatsApp. Then we have region heads who can enter into that conversation at any time. I man all my platforms. I can see the conversations my girls are having with every single client. I can see the conversation on Facebook. I can see it on Instagram. Through our CRM, I can see it on WhatsApp. There's even a phone system that I can tap into to listen to what the conversation is. We have a complaints mechanism as well. Now, the training that we have incorporated is, if you walk into the shop, the first thing you have to be asked is, you say, oh, nataka dawa, ile awa mama, nataka dawa ya, niko na hormonal. Usually Kenyans love shortening words. Niko na hormonal, not even hormonal, niko na hormonal. We know, what does this person mean? We ask them, have you been to a gynecologist? Yes. Alisema nini? Alisema tu ni hormonal. What type of hormonal imbalance do you have? Alisema ni ovarian cyst. Najua zina grow sana. Now we have something. Do you have something from your ultrasound? Then we look at the ultrasound, and then it tells us this person has 3 fibroids in the uterus or a fundial. And this is what we use to interpret what we give them. And if your fibroids are large, and we ask, daktari alisema uende kwa surgery. Yes, amesema lakini nimeogopa. Right? I tell them, take this 3 times a day. arrowroot, 45 mLs for 6 weeks. Go to the ultrasound. Bring me one that shows something is working, something is changing.
Harriet, for this girl to be able to look at an ultrasound and interpret it, she has to have undergone some training.
Some kind of training.
Yes.
Have they been to KMTC or anywhere?
Not yet. But we have had one person from KMTC come in and brief us. So we run these trainings every month, and we do work with the medical practitioners. Like I said, we work with a doctor who has come and sat with us and said, this is what you should be looking at. So that is the process we've had so far. But I do take that on point. I will engage KMTC.
Okay. Traditionally, the way the knowledge was passed.
Oh, I forgot to mention, we do have 2 people who are region heads who are nurses, who actually work for the county government. Trained nurses, senior trained
registered nurses.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Traditionally, the knowledge was passed on from one person to another, from one generation to another, and it was rigorous.
Yes.
They'd be taken through the forest. You're shown this tree, this is poison, this tree, this part is medicinal, this can do this and the other. All right? So there was knowledge transfer. I have not heard you mention anything apart from the first time when you met this woman and she gave you this.
Okay.
I haven't heard you mention you engaged, you learned, you went through the forest, you understood the trees, the roots, the barks.
Okay. So this business has been we've been in business for 5 years officially. So when this lady came the next day, she came with my auntie. And my auntie is part of the group in the forest who actually source for the products. Now, this thing is passed on because her uncle, my grandfather's brother, was a big traditional healer. So what they then say, when I went back for community engagement, there's 40 women that I was working with who were collecting these for me. And they said to me, okay, what have you been doing? And I told them, I've been in Nairobi, and there are women coming to me for this, and the other. And they asked me, have you healed any? This old woman, like 80 years, said, na ulimtibu? I said, yes. Nini litendeka alipata twins. She told me, asante, uko na mkono. Right? The minute uko na mkono, you're allowed to harvest traditional medicine. Not everybody is allowed. Right? And they will now confirm that this is the family and there was this other person in the family. It is not passed down directly from what I know, but somebody in your family lineage will have been...
You must have the gift.
Absolutely. The gift of the hand. And that is why not even if people know which the trees are, they're not allowed to go and harvest, and they're not allowed to actually do this work.
Harriet is the anointed one.
So there is an unspoken and a spoken understanding that you can actually go and do this from the community.
I am allowed to harvest the medicine, to grow the medicine, to harvest the medicine. If you find me in the forest, it's not a problem. But if you find somebody else who doesn't do that kind of work in the forest, it is a problem because of also deforestation, because of theft of indigenous species, because of so many things, biopiracy. So it is very controlled, and I'm really glad that you asked that.
So who do you work with in the community?
In the community? So we have we have practitioners in 3 different places, right? And we work with up to 50 to 100 practitioners. All of them have different formulations that they have presented to us. At the same time, we have what we call a community engagement team. We run community engagement programs. So we have the wider community that we sit with, and we do different things. We do education. As an example, we also work with hospitals. We renovated part of Litain Hospital because we do believe, we want to tell our audience, this is where you go when you have issues. If you're overbleeding and you fainted or you think something is terribly wrong, we are working with a hospital. So we partnered with Litain Hospital for that very reason. Actually, we renovated their OBGYN. That is where we are, because this is actually to do with giving birth, and their maternity wing, and their women's surgical ward, and their men's surgical ward, and their women's medical and men's medical ward. A very strong statement saying we are working with hospitals. We work in education. We run education programs for children over the holidays. At the same time, we do various things with people in the community, whether it's paying school fees here or paying a hospital bill here. We're active in the community in a way saying we are very grateful for what is going on. We want to give back to the community. We pay top dollar for those herbs. We don't scrimp and say this is just 5 bob. So it is quite expensive to purchase them the way we do it. And in that way, we encourage them to keep growing the trees. If you have a tenderweight, you will keep it for posterity, for your children to harvest one day and sell to Harrods Botanicals. We can't absorb everything now, but we can at least promise you that your pocket won't be empty if you keep the traditional trees that are already on your land.
Who owns the intellectual property?
I do.
Registered?
My company, yes.
Registered in Kenya and registered
in
with
Kenya.
WIPO.
registered in Kenya.
Okay.
Yes.
Not yet with WIPO Regional.
Not yet, yes.
So do these people who work with you get royalties?
So the people, yes, the original person who showed me their formula, I mixed 3 formulas and I added my own. They get royalties, right? There's like 3 particular healers who receive money from us all the time. And then we also do white labeling. So for example, this product, Busareg Ablelaitich, is not my formulation.
Say that again.
Busareg Ablelaitich.
Say that again.
Busareg Ablelaitich. So Busareg means ash. This is how medicine is stored for long periods within the wider Kalenjin. So Lelaitich is where my late mom is from, and this was how I commemorated her. So I own the copyright, I own the trademark, I don't own the formula. Okay. So this we buy direct, from the healer, and he makes it himself, without any interference from us.
And so he has licensed you to sell?
Yes, absolutely.
And that is all documented?
Yes, it is.
Not a couple of years down the road and somebody goes to him and says, "But you want to chase one, mom?"
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And we're very well known.
Okay. What is Busareg?
Busareg means ash or powder.
Okay.
So Busareg has 20 trees in it. So you see, this way of doing traditional medicine can be devastating to the forest. If we did all this in that same way, we use so much feedstock. So the amount of feedstock that is used to create so little ash, it's like if we did it in powder form or in tablet form, then the forest wouldn't be there, to be honest. And this is the reason the forest is still there, because our ancestors did it in liquid form. So they use a little to produce a lot of liquid.
Yeah.
Okay. What demographic are we talking about in terms of age who are using your product?
Medicine.
I ask this because as time has progressed, we've seen conditions in younger people. If we're going to look at women now, you have girls getting their period at a much younger age than they did 5 years ago.
Absolutely.
You have women going into menopause much younger than they did. So who's consuming this?
So my demographic is anything women between age 22 to age 52. Women, right? Why 22? Because of excessive use of emergency contraception has caused blocked tubes and ectopic pregnancies and multiple miscarriages. I did not even know about this until actually at the beginning of my business. This is the group that grew my business. Young women, newly married, fresh from campus. It was shocking, right? So because I was targeting women in their 40s with fibroids, there's that demographic. There's women who have taken other contraceptives, and then let's say you take Depo, and then after 3 years you're off the Depo, but you're still not getting pregnant. They take my product to wash off residual birth control. There's women who are now experiencing perimenopause as early as 28. Women in their 30s who their periods disappear even for 5 years. So I met one woman in a pharmacy, and she was like, "God, I'm using your product because period will disappear when?" 26. How old are you now? 36. Never had a period for 10 years. She's like, "I don't have any children. You have to help me. My husband is going to leave me." Right? So these are the kind of people who are using, and they're out there, and you'd be shocked. The stories that you hear are indeed so surprising.
I assume that this woman had gone to hospital.
So she had been, she told me, I've given the hospital all my money. Nimeuza shamba, everything. Nothing has worked.
From your interaction with her and interaction with your friendly doctors,
yes,
what causes this?
It's called amenorrhea. Amenorrhea is really an excess of androgens. It's something to do with polycystic ovarian syndrome. The male hormones in your body are too high. And now you find women with beards, women with mustaches, women with body hair, women with chest hair. And it's like they have male patent baldness as well. Their hair is disappearing. They have, people say, "What's going on with you?" It's like you're turning into a man.
Yeah.
And they don't ovulate, right? So they don't ovulate, they don't get a period also as well.
And what does your thing do?
So my thing is to reduce the androgens. What we need to do first is take a look at the insulin. Insulin is probably high. These people also usually have, they're also overweight. They struggle with weight, and they have hormonal acne. And so what my product does, the first thing is to evacuate insulin, reduce insulin, which is causing excess androgens. And then after that, stimulate fertility, stimulate ovarian reserve, like create an environment for healthy eggs to grow, change the pH balance of the body, induce interest in a different type of food. Most of these people who have PCOS eat a lot of carbs. It's a disease actually of excess carbohydrates. So we are changing like the makeup of the body. We are telling the person, you used to be like this, now you're going to be like this. This medicine is going to make you want to eat more vegetables and maybe drink more water and get healthier generally. At the same time, it's doing something in your reproductive system. It's clearing out all those polycystic ovaries that did not mature. It's cleaning your womb. It's stimulating fertility. It also increases libido, which is something that everybody, talks about kichini, but it's a big seller of our product for the women who are menopausal. Then, of course, you talked about these young men now in their 20s who have erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation, 0 sperm count, low sperm count. Why? Because of our dietary changes, overuse of drugs, and overuse of steroids. So, and also we now have side effects of medication, side effects of allopathic medication creates erectile dysfunction. So the range even for men, strangely enough, is from the 20s all the way up to the 60s. Then we have prostate issues, something called benign prostate hyperplasia. And that is, as you get older as a man, now mkojo is not the way it used to be. You used to aim over there, but now you aim over here.
You
and
don't
now you
aim, it just goes.
Yes, exactly. And now maybe you drip, or maybe you're getting up too much in the night to go to the toilet to wee, and it's uncomfortable. And it's just a benign condition that develops with age due to a lack of detox of the bodily functions. With time, that becomes prostate cancer. And as I mentioned, tenduit, Prunus africana, is actually one of the things that is used for chemotherapy medicine in Europe. Places like Cameroon, they are sending a lot of their Prunus africana to Europe for this. And actually, there's a French company that has a patent on tenduit.
Good Lord in heaven. Okay. I want to ask about you. So when you took this, it was the first one, right?
Yes.
You were patient 0, essentially.
Absolutely.
In this thing.
Yes.
Did you ever experience those symptoms again? What happened that changed for you after you took them?
Okay, so I experienced painless period. Initially, I just wanted a painless period. I also experienced increased libido. My whole life changed. My PMS symptoms disappeared forever. I do not experience pain, right? I cannot remember for the last 2 or 3 years what it is to have a painful period.
And you're taking?
I take all my products.
Arouette every day?
Yeah, the one I take the most now is Mosipchot.
Okay.
Because recently I developed joint pain. So I thought, what is this, right? And there was a couple of days I had hot flushes and night sweats. It was nuts. That's how I developed Mosipchot, because they kept telling me, kuna dawa ingine nafanya ina hii, and I didn't believe them. Then I took it myself and I released it into the market. I said, this is amazing. So I don't have joint pain. I don't have the hot flushes. I don't have the night sweats. My libido is high. I don't have PMS. I mean, I just live like the way I'd say most men live all their lives.
Okay, so has anybody ever come to you? You've given them any of these concoctions. Have they told you it does not work?
Yes, absolutely. And this is how we developed these protocols, because we did retraining. People come and say to me, my fibroids were large and I took your medicine, nothing happened. And then this is when I developed, I have a specific protocol for fibroids, right? Others say, nimechukua, niko chupa mbili, but the periods haven't come back. Oh, I took your product I was on and off for 1 year. There's no pain. Because the people come and say to me, yes, definitely my period is painless, no more clots, but I haven't conceived. There are those who say to me, I've taken 1 bottle, sija conceive. Bado sija conceive. When will I conceive? I get this question every single day. When will I conceive? And I don't want to tell people, well, it depends on your
Friday night at 10 p.m.
Absolutely.
How many times should one take? How big is this bottle? 750, 1 liter?
This bottle is 1 liter. It lasts you 21 days.
So 21 days.
45 mLs.
If you're getting into, let's say, you want to conceive.
Yeah.
And you start taking this.
Yeah.
How many times what's the minimum? Are you
45 mLs, first thing in the morning, 3 tablespoons is the minimum.
And then I'll finish it in 21 days.
In 21 days.
And should I come for round 2?
Now, we always say that the minimum is 3. There are people who get pregnant after bottle 1, especially those who only had UTIs or those who had residual birth control.
Okay.
There are people who get pregnant after 6 months. There are people who get pregnant after 2 years.
But you continue taking until you get pregnant?
Absolutely. Continue taking until you achieve the results that you want. It doesn't have to be pregnancy. If you are painless, that is fine. If you stopped bleeding, that is fine. If your period came back and you think this is too expensive or you don't want it anymore, that is absolutely perfect.
When do you know it's not working?
I think if you're frustrated, if you have a goal to say, look, in 3 months I must be pregnant, or I've already waited 2 years.
Yep.
And for you, it's like, nilichukua chupa moja, those people are just liars. And they tell me to my face. My first year was rough. My first and second year, I had a rough time online. I mean, people bullied me to death about this. They said, you're a liar, you're a con woman, you're this. This is why we opened up our factory. We opened shops because they said, you're online. How do we know you even exist? I tell them, come to the factory. That's why we opened up our community engagement. Come to the forest. Come and see what is there. Come and meet me at the factory. Now I am at Waterfront. If you want to see me, come. I'm there. And then we just say, this is a doctor. This is a person. We have a big thing around transparency, which I think has taken us a long way.
You know, something that happens with when people become ill, they start becoming desperate.
Yes.
All right?
Yeah.
Especially if you go to the formal medical channels.
Absolutely.
And nothing is working.
Yeah.
People get desperate.
That's
why they end up going for prayers. And you find people who are just paying amounts of money because, panda mbegu ndio upone.
Exactly.
Others go for herbalists.
Yes.
How do you respond to those who look at you and think, you are just sitting at the tail end of waiting for people who are going to be desperate coming to you, and you tell them, use this. And I also have one or two people who can give testimonies that it worked for them.
Yes, the only way is creating more transparency, because I tell them, go to the shops and you're going to meet other people who are using the product. You don't even have to talk to me. You can talk to those people, right? Or come to the factory and take a look, or go to talk to other people, or inbox all these people who are on my page. Because there's a time you put a testimonial and there's 300 likes and there's 20 to 50 comments. I'm like, you can inbox all these people who said it worked for me. And it has absolutely nothing to do with me. You can.
It's all organic.
Absolutely. That's what we look for, organic testimonials, right? And at the same time, we have members of staff who also got pregnant, and they come with their babies and they say, this is what happened. I didn't even plan it. I had a UTI and I used this product and it washed out my family planning. And here is baby number 3. Right? So there's a lot of that kind of interaction going on all the time. We run workshops, we run events, we meet people. That is actually, I think, the most we can do. And there are still some who think, definitely, you are a quack.
I'm going to say something. It'll sound sexist and all, but I apologize. There are very many times that you'll see testimonials, particularly from women who say, I swear this thing worked for me. What was that thing that PPB warned us about the other day?
The yoni balls.
The yoni balls.
Yoni balls, and also they also had some sweets and
candies,
all, and candies and all.
Yeah, and Chinese.
I went through their page, and there were people who were swearing that these candies were working for them. I took the candy. Oh my goodness! It really, really sorted me out. I did the yoni balls, and my God, it worked.
Sorry,
it was
yoni pearls.
Yoni pearls. I won. So. That and Harriet's. Show me the distinction.
So, just to clarify, yoni pearls are part of Chinese medicine. They are big in Chinese medicine. It's whether we're getting an adulterated form or a fake form of whatever it is, right? Now, the distinction between that and Harriet, I think, is that my journey has been quite public. I go to the media. I write in all the local dailies. I appear in places like this. So I have a bit of a public persona, right? And we've not had any interference from any government agencies. We're operating in plain sight, right? We're all over Facebook. We're all over social media. There are still some people who are a little bit skeptical. I always say, just try one bottle and you give me some feedback. The same way I brought these freebies, these 20 bottles, and I'm going to say, you take one of these and tell me. You take this and tell me.
Because what's the guarantee that, look, after all, it's an organic, it's a natural product. The possibility of it hurting you then is diminished. Because it's natural, so you can actually go and try it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
you
it's
can
100% natural.
Will happen to you.
Nothing will happen to you. Literally, you will go to the toilet a little bit more. That is it. It's 100% natural, organic, no chemicals, absolutely none, not even a preservative. And that is intentional.
So, Eldoret, which one is it that you bring?
I brought 10 weight for you.
So what should I? I take it and then I bring you feedback.
What's your problem?
What should I look out for if I take?
Okay,
if
you
I
should
took
look
10
for
today. Okay.
Okay, you should look for increased energy, bursts of energy. Actually, you might find that you only sleep a couple of hours, but you're very energetic. You will feel good, right? Your digestive systems will improve. Your metabolism will improve. You will lose a little bit. You will lose a little bit of weight around your waist. You will trim up. It'll trim you up.
One bottle.
Yes, one bottle. You will be thirsty, very thirsty. You will have increased sleep at the beginning, as it causes what we call a reset. Your libido could get pretty high. Especially our brothers from Western, when they take this, it's nuts.
Literally. No pun intended.
You know?
That pun landed so nicely. Okay. Again, you said you have shops across the country.
I do.
You are licensed.
I am.
By the State Department for
Ministry of Culture. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so if somebody comes and they look at your shop, they will see some license from the government.
Absolutely. And also there's other licenses.
To operate.
There are other licenses in there because you have to get YBAR, you have to get City Council licenses, you have to get health and safety for all your employees who handle. Every employee who handles this product must go through a process of training at the City Council.
Okay.
So you'll find like 7 licenses in every shop and maybe 10 in the factory.
Wow. So.
You obviously have a hope for health.
I do.
In terms of getting people to get away from pain. And isn't that usually what happens? That you have a personal experience and you say, you know what, this it can help me commercially, but it can also help other people because you understand the torture that you must have gone through.
Absolutely. It's horrible when your life is completely debilitated by pain and no one understands what's happening with you. What about the mood swings?
Yeah.
When you have these kind of hormonal issues, your mood swings are on another level. You snap at everybody, you're angry. I'm sure people always say, oh, time of the month. Or you can be working in an organization where you're highly competent, but during the time of the month, everybody's like,
become a troll.
Time of the month, exactly. And it's really like, it's stigmatizing as well for many women.
Thank you for joining us today.
Asante sana.
Harriet Chebet is the CEO and founder of Harriet's Botanicals. She's been here. We'll be talking about alternative medicine on this Health Friday. Happy September. We wish you a lovely weekend. We'll be back on Monday. CT should be able to join us on Monday.
Spice up.
Good morning, 10 a.m.